Order. Order, members. Now we have the required quorum, and therefore the business will begin. Member for Kajiado West. Member for Kajiado West. Honorable Sunkuya, take your seat. Now there is a member here who is crossing the floor left and right. Go back to the...
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
That particular order, we have the leader of majority party and the chairperson, Departmental Committee on Finance. Prepare yourself.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Wednesday, April 3rd, 2019, in the morning sitting. 1, the annual reports and financial statements of the following institutions for the financial year 2017-2018. And these institutions are the Ministry of Energy, Pwani University, Geothermal Development Authority, and the Competition Authority of Kenya. 2, the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the Alupe University College for the year ending 30th June 2018 and the certificate therein. And 3, the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements in respect of the following constituencies for the year that ended 30th June 2017 and the certificate therein. Kwesero constituency, Bomachoge constituency, and South Mugirango constituency. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Let's have the chairperson, Departmental Committee on Finance and Planning. Is he absent? Okay. Now let's have you laying the paper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Wednesday, April 3rd, 2019, morning sitting. Report of the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning on its consideration of Senate amendments to the Public-Private Partnership Amendment Bill 2017.
Very well. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements.
We do not seem to have any statement, at least to the best of my knowledge. So we will move to questions. And to start us off is the member for Kisumu West, Honorable Lago Luoch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask question number 119 of 2019, directed to the Cabinet Secretary for Lands and Fiscal Planning. 1, when was the parcel of land number LR 332/182, Maseno Township, Kisumu County, allocated to the Administration Police? 2, under what circumstances was part of this parcel reallocated to private developers and new parcels of land created? And could the Cabinet Secretary provide identities of the persons or institutions that benefited from their reallocations? And lastly, what steps has the ministry taken to ensure that this parcel of land reverts back to the National Police Service? And further, what action has the ministry taken to secure all parcels of land allocated to the National Police Service in the country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That one will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Lands. Next is Honorable Beatrice Adagala, member for Vihiga. Come to the next one, or to the dispatch box, please, or the one behind you. So you will choose the one which is more. You are there. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I wish to ask this question to the Cabinet Secretary for Energy. Question number 122/2019. One, could the Cabinet Secretary explain why Kenya Power and Lighting Company electricity charges for domestic use are overly expensive with a user token purchase of Kenya shillings 3,000, attracting tax of Kenya shillings 886.31 cents, which translates to 44.3% taxation. Two, is the Cabinet Secretary aware of the frequent power outages in Vihiga County, which has immensely affected business as well as damaged household electrical equipments? Three, what measures is the ministry putting in place to address the frequent power outages in the county? And further, could the ministry consider compensating those who have lost their household electrical equipments due to power outages occasioned by the company? Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Very well. That will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Energy. Next is the member for Kadiani, Honorable Robert Mbui.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask question number 145 of 2019 to the Cabinet Secretary for Education. Could the Cabinet Secretary explain the program regarding the administration and funding of internal examinations in public schools and provide the total capitation per student for internal examinations in both primary and secondary public schools? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. That will be replied to before the Committee on Education and Research. Next is the member for Luanda, Honorable Christopher Omolele.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to ask question number 169 of 2019 to the Cabinet Secretary for Education. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide a list of all duly registered government-funded technical and vocational education, training, TVET institutions in the country, indicating their location in terms of counties and constituencies? And two, when will funds allocated to TVET institutions in Luanda constituency during the financial year 2018/2019 be disbursed?
Very well. That one will be replied to before the Committee on Education and Research. And that marks the end of our question time. So we go to the next order. Next order.
Order number 8, procedural motion. Exemption of business from the provisions of Standing Order 40, paragraph 3.
Okay. Is that leader of the majority party? Leader of majority party? Leader of majority party, you have a procedural motion and it is fairly straightforward, so we can dispense with it quickly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this House orders the business appearing as order number 15 and 16 in the order paper be exempted from the provisions of Standing Order 40, subsection 3, being a Wednesday morning, a day allocated for business not sponsored by the majority or the minority party, or business sponsored by a committee. Mr. Speaker, as is the practice, Wednesday mornings are meant for debate of private members' bills and motions. However, there is need for this House to consider the report on the vetting of the nominee for approval of the Inspector General of the National Police Service and the report of the Departmental Committee on Communication, Information and Innovation into the legislative and regulatory gaps affecting the telecommunication subsector. And Mr. Speaker, as members are aware, this House is scheduled to proceed on a short recess tomorrow after the address by His Excellency the President.
No, Honorable Makali Mulu, you can do it quickly, because it's a fairly straightforward thing. We want to dispense with it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I think I want to support this procedural motion.
You are not supporting, you are seconding.
I want to second, sorry. And I think the facts are very clear as presented by the leader of majority, so I second.
Very well. Order. Order. You freeze, like in the fridge. So, I propose the question, which is that this House orders that the business appearing as order number 15 and 16 in the order paper be exempted from the provisions of Standing Order 43, being a Wednesday morning, a day allocated for business not sponsored by the majority or minority party or business sponsored by a committee. Order. So I put the question, which is that this House orders the business appearing as order number 15 and 16 in the order paper be exempted from provisions of Standing Order 43, being a Wednesday morning, a day allocated for business not sponsored by the majority or minority party or business sponsored by a committee. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. And for members, when you are frozen, you do not even vote. So, next order.
Order number 9, motion. Policy for recruitment and remuneration of village elders. Question to be put.
Order, Honorable Kenta. Order. Honorable Kenta. Order. What remained of this particular motion was the question to be put, and I confirm that we have the required numbers, and I therefore put the question, which is aware that the village elders play an integral role in the functioning of the national government at the village level by assisting the chiefs and assistant chiefs in facilitating national government services, including promotion of education, handling of security issues, solving disputes, promoting development initiatives, and social services in their villages through the Nyumba Kumi initiative, concerned that these officers discharge these important duties without facilitation by the government, acknowledging the need to appreciate and motivate these village elders for services rendered, cognizant of the resolution of the House of July 28, 2016, urging the national government to consider giving a monthly or annual honorarium to village elders as a means of appreciating their services and encouraging their dedication to community. This House further urges the national government to formulate and implement a policy on criteria for recruitment and remuneration of village elders. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Many as of a contrary opinion say nay? Nay. The ayes have it.
Order number 10, the Narcotic, Drugs, and Psychotropic Substances Control Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 7 of 2019, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Narcotics, Drugs, and Psychotropic Substance Control Act. Order number 11, the National Disaster Management Authority Bill, National Assembly Bill number 10 of 2019, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to provide for the establishment of the National Disaster Management Authority and for connected purposes. Order number 12, the Statutory Instruments Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 13 of 2019, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Statutory Instruments Act. Order number 13, the Employment Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 15 of 2019, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Employment Act and for connected purposes. Order number 14, the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 19 of 2019, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Constitution. Order number 15, special motion, approval of the nominee for appointment as the Inspector General of the National Police Service.
Is that report going to be moved, the special motion going to be moved by the Chairperson, Administration, and National Security Committee? Yes, I think so. So proceed. You have the floor. Honorable Koinange, are you ready?
Yes, I am ready. Yeah.
We are doing the approval for the nominee for appointment as Inspector General of the National Service Commission.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that this House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee of Administration and National Security of the National Assembly and the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense, and Foreign Relations of the Senate of the vetting of Mr. Hilary Nzioki Mutiambai, nominee for appointment to the position of the Inspector General of the National Police Service, laid on the floor of this House on Tuesday, 2nd April 2019. Honorable Speaker, Article 245 in bracket 1 and 245 in bracket 2 in bracket A of the Constitution.
Order, Chair. You need to move the motion.
I have already moved the motion.
Is in the order paper.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that taking into consideration of the findings of the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security of the National Assembly and the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense, and Foreign Relations of the Senate in the report on the vetting of the nominee for approval as the Inspector of the National Police Service, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, April 2nd, 2019, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 245 in bracket 2 in bracket A of the Constitution and Section 12 in bracket 1 of the National Police Service Act of 2011 and Section 8 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011, this House approves the appointment of Mr. Hilary Nzioki Mutiambai as the Inspector General of the National Police Service. Honorable Speaker, Article 245 and 245, 2 in bracket A of the Constitution establishes the office of the Inspector General, which is an office in the National Police Service. The Inspector General is appointed by the President with the approval of Parliament. The Inspector General exercises independent command over the National Police Service and performs any functions prescribed by the national legislation. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 42 in bracket 1 of the National Assembly, Standing Orders, and Standing Order 42 in bracket 1 of the Senate, Standing Orders on 19th March 2019 and 20th March 2019, the Speaker of the National Assembly and the Speaker of the Senate, respectively, conveyed a message to the respective houses from His Excellency Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, CGH, President and Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defense Forces. Honorable Speaker, the message stated that in exercise of the powers conferred by Article 245 in bracket 2 and in bracket A of the Constitution, and in compliance with the procedure set out under Section 12 in bracket 2 of the National Police Service Act of 2011, the President had nominated Hilary Nzioki Mutiambai for appointment as the Inspector General of the National Police Service. Honorable Speaker, after receiving the message from His Excellency the President on the nomination of Mr. Hilary Nzioki Mutiambai for the position of the Inspector General of the National Police Service, the Speaker of the National Assembly and the Speaker of the Senate on Tuesday, 19th March 2019 and Wednesday, 20th March 2019, respectively, issued a communication and directed that the vetting of the appointment to the position of Inspector General of National Police Service be conducted jointly by both houses as required by the Constitution and statute. The name of the nominee and his curriculum vitae were referred by the National Assembly to the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security, and by the Senate to the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense, and Foreign Relations. Honorable Speaker, Section 6(9) of the Public Appointments in bracket Parliamentary Approval Act number 33 of 2011 provides that any person may, prior to the approval hearing and by written statement on oath, provide the clerk with evidence contesting the suitability of a candidate to hold the office to which the candidates have been nominated. To this end, Honorable Speaker, on Thursday, 21st March, the Office of the Clerk of the National Assembly and the Clerk of the Senate jointly published an advertisement in the print media with a wide circulation, inviting members of the public to present written statements referred to in Section 6 in bracket 9 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act number 33 of 2011. The written statements, Honorable Speaker, were to be submitted on or before Wednesday, 27th March 2019 at 5 p.m. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Article 118 in bracket 1, A in bracket and B in bracket, and 2 of the Constitution, and Section 6 in bracket 4 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011, the provisions of the relevant standing orders of the two houses, another advertisement was issued on Thursday, 21st March 2019, to notify members of the public that the Departmental Committee and Administration and National Security of the National Assembly and Standing Committee on National Security, Defense, and Foreign Relations of Senate would conduct a joint approval hearing on Thursday, 28th March 2019. Honorable Speaker, on Thursday, 21st March 2019, the Clerk of the National Assembly and the Clerk of Senate jointly...
Majority.
Chair, I don't want to disrupt my very able Chair of National Security, but I think for convenience of the House, we have the report, we have the minutes. It's good he summarizes, you know, so that, because of the procedure we know, if he reads the whole report, word for word, then we will have a problem of quorum because we need to finish this thing and put the
yes,
question.
you know, and really
But I really want him to summarize.
I must agree with the leader of majority. I must agree with the leader of majority. And in any case, the members should be informed that we only have 3 hours to transact this business. Kindly summarize it.
Yeah, thank you.
I know the chair is a very meticulous chair who wants to give all the details, but since the members have really gone through some of these reports, if you can summarize it, it would be very good for the House.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. I was doing this because the other day we were doing vetting of the National Police Service Chair. There were some issues which were raised later, and this is why I was trying to be a bit thorough. But, Honorable Speaker, well guided, and I will go straight to the committees, having considered the nominees' filed questions pursuant to Section 6 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Act, Curriculum Vitae, and oral submissions during the approval hearing, made the following observations on the as the Inspector General of the National Police Service. Honorable Speaker, 1, that in accordance with Article 78 in bracket 1 and 2 in bracket of the Constitution, the nominee is a Kenyan citizen and does not hold dual citizenship. 2, that the academic credentials and professional training and experience of the nominee is in accordance with the provisions of Section 6 in bracket 7 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act number 33 of 2011. 3, that the nominee is currently serving as a Deputy Director, Counter-Terrorism at the National Intelligence Service, tasked with advising the Director General on matters of counter-terrorism and emerging threats national and globally. 4, that the nominee demonstrated vast experience in policing, security, intelligence, and investigation with 27 years of investigative and law enforcement experience. 5, that the nominee satisfies the requirements of Chapter 6 of the Constitution on leadership and integrity. 6, that the nominee has not been charged in a court of law or mentioned adversely in a parliamentary committee report or commission of inquiry. 7, Honorable Speaker, that is stipulated in Article 75 in bracket 1 of the Constitution, the nominee has no potential conflict of interest. 8, that the nominee satisfies the requirements of Article 77 in bracket 1 of the Constitution in that he does not intend to participate in any other gainful employment. 9, the nominee does not hold office in any registered political party, hence satisfy the provision of Article 77 in bracket 2 of the Constitution. 10, the nominee has never been dismissed from office for contravention of the provisions of Article 75 in bracket 1, conflict of interest, 76, financial probity, 77, restriction of state officers, and 78, dual citizenship of the Constitution. 11, the committee did not receive any written statements on oath, affidavit with regard to the suitability or otherwise of the nominee. 12, that the nominee was declared by the Credit Reference Bureau, the Higher Education Zone Board, the Directorate of Criminal Investigation, the Kenya Revenue Authority, and the Ethics Anti-Corruption Commission, therefore making him fit to hold public office as per the requirements of Chapter 6 of the Constitution. And finally, that the nominee has the necessary experience and qualification to hold the office of the Inspector General of the National Police Service as per the requirements of the National Police Service Act number 11 of 2011. Honorable Speaker, based on the above observations, the committee making the following recommendations. that having considered the suitability, capacity, integrity of the nominee, and pursuant to Article 245 in bracket 2 of the Constitution and Section 8 in bracket 2 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act number 33 of 2011, the committee recommends that Parliament approves the nomination and subsequent appointment of Mr. Hilary Zioke Mtiambai to the position of the Inspector General of the National Police Service. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And I now call upon Honorable Kaunya to second. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Kaunya, and you are seconding. Seconding. Give the mic to Honorable Kaunya.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to second. Honorable Speaker, the committee had a very thorough vetting exercise on this candidate. The candidate, as indicated, met all the requirements of the law, the Constitution, the National Police Service Act, and of the Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act. Mr. Speaker, on seconding, this particular candidate comes in at a time when the National Police Service is undergoing reforms which were launched by His Excellency the President last year. It was the concern, of course, of the committee during the interview that there are specific areas Kenyans are looking forward to in the National Police changes. The IG is expected to address issues of corruption within the police service. Mr. Speaker, issues pertaining to delivery of service and building trust with the public were raised. The candidate was able to give satisfactory answers, and he was able to give strategies that he was going to apply, among which he said the candidate was going to apply and develop policies that will help to address the corruption within the police service. Mr. Speaker, the candidate has a master's degree in terms of academics. He had a bachelor's degree, he has a master's degree, and as indicated, the candidate has experience of over 27 years, and the requirement of the National Police.
Honorable Pukose, what is out of order?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Considering the interest members have in this position of the Inspector General, I request that we reduce the time given for members to 5 minutes.
Yes,
because you have so many members who would want to contribute, Honorable Speaker.
That's perfectly in line. You have put it well. Obviously, even when you do that, I will reserve some reasonable time to the Leader of Majority and his counterpart the other side.
Yes. But the rest of us we can speak in 5 minutes.
Allow us to dispose of this. What is it, Honorable Leader of Majority?
Speaker, we are dealing with a very critical nominee. Mr. Speaker, we have all the time. Why should we subject members to 3 minutes, 5 minutes? No, even 5 minutes. Mr. Speaker, Parliament has been accused of a rubber stamp. And when we are doing vetting, I don't think whether, Mr. Speaker, we are in a hurry. If Honorable Bukose, my very good friend, if he wants to speak for 5 minutes or 3 minutes, he is at liberty. But he cannot curtail other members, including myself, who wants to speak for 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Okay,
the choice is for Honorable Bukose, even to speak for 1 minute.
In this particular one, Honorable Leader of Majority, my hands are completely tied. Once a member requests, as per the standing order, and by the way, Honorable members, 5 minutes is reasonable. You know, you are talking about a balance of 2 hours, because You know, the mover and the seconder have taken quite some time. So what we will do is we'll dispense of this. If the members agree, I will obviously consider the leader of majority and his counterpart in the minority for the time. So I put the question, which is that members be allowed to speak for 5 minutes. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Any as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes overwhelmingly have it. So, but we'll start with the leader of majority. Leader of majority, you have your floor.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the report of the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security and the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations of the Senate for bringing this report on the vetting of the nominee for the Inspector General of the National Police Service. Mr. Speaker, all this is in compliance with Article 243(1) of the Constitution that establishes the National Police Service, Article 245, subsection 1 of the Constitution that establishes the Office of the Inspector General of Police of the National Police Service, Section 10, subsection 1 and 4 of the National Police Service Act that sets out the functions and the powers of the Inspector General. And Mr. Speaker, the National Police Service is a very, very important organ of any state. And in fact, I might call it as the bedrock of ensuring that internal security of this nation, of our nation, is guaranteed. And indeed, someone once said, Mr. Speaker, and if I quote, he said, if you think persons are inherently good, then you get rid of the police for only 24 hours and see what happens. So just remove police from the streets, from everywhere for 24 hours, and you'll see the chaos that will happen in a country. But Mr. Speaker, I saw the seconder talking about the academic qualifications of Mr. Musyoki. And you know, I wondered, this is the third Inspector General we are vetting. And one of the worst performing Inspector General in the history of Kenya had a PhD, a man called Kimaiyo. You know, he had a PhD, 2 masters, PhD. So this notion that when you have papers, you can be the best soldier. Sometimes it's the best soldier. And the member for Kadhiani is sitting here. His father was one of the, is it your father or your grandfather? Your grandfather was one of the best generals, and he has no formal education. My father-in-law was one of the best generals, General Mahmoud. He had no formal education. So when you come to vet somebody who is a security expert, please don't tell us the story of Mr. Siegi. You know, Siege. So, but secondly, Mr. Speaker, in regard to having a competent and effective Inspector General cannot be overstated as it is directly linked to having an effective police service. Mr. Speaker, now we have a more reformed police service. We have clearly demarcated what is the function of the administration police service and what is the function of the Kenya Police Service. So that the administrative, the Speaker, the members from Meru are just making a lot of noise behind me here. So you can protect me.
Members don't make noise. They can only consult. The
Yes.
noise is always reserved for
The senior counsel and the Honorable Moke, they can consult widely. So, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Hilary Nzioka was the first recruited as a police constable. That story is not juicy. It's not very juicy. Well, when you are recruited, but Mr. Nzioki, Mr. Speaker, currently before he gets this job, was the deputy director in charge of counterterrorism. And Mr. Speaker, you know, we represent people. We represent people and we protect the Constitution. And the Speaker, in this House, in the 10th and 11th Parliament, we passed legislation dealing with matters of terrorism. We passed legislation dealing with matters of anti-money laundering. We dealt with the most, controversial security laws, where, she has now left. The Honorable Wanga is remembered for, security laws, where Honorable Speaker is remembered for, where Honorable Mili Odhiambo is remembered for. When I write a book about my life, I will remember the security laws, what happened here. And we gave the police to detain and the judiciary up to 60 days, any person. But Mr. Speaker, there is serious disappearance of Kenyans. There is serious extrajudicial killing. And this Inspector General, that should be his first task. As we speak, there are Kenyans who their bodies have decomposed in the city mortuary, in which the DPP and the DCI have even asked for the DNA to be taken to South Africa. Speaker, why do we kill people? In the 10th Parliament, I was very, very unpopular with my late minister, may his soul rest in peace, Minister Michuki, because he gave orders to kill Mungiki youth. Any youth who looks like a Mungiki in Mount Kenya region was killed during the 10th Parliament. Now we have again a situation where Kenyans are disappearing. In the coast, in Nairobi, in northeastern. Speaker, we have the laws. Get somebody, take him to court. If he's a high-profile person, keep him in committee maximum, the most dangerous part of the prison, and don't even release him. But Mr. Speaker, when you pick people and you kill them, and then you dump their bodies in Savo, and then they get decomposed. So the new Inspector General, he should forget about his work as a counter-terrorism expert. He should come and make sure Kenyans are safe. Kenyans, he has all what it takes to be the Inspector General of Police. But we want him to make sure that that he is up to the task and uphold the rule of law. Mr. Speaker, during the security laws, when the Honorable Junet, Honorable Junet and his team, they passed through a lot of history, lot of offices. They used to sing, they used to disruption, they went to resistance, they used to come with the Frimbi. But God works in miracles. God works in miracles. Every day I pray to God, God, you have saved us. Today, the people who helped me in defending the president are these people. So you see, we are all Kenyans. Only that yesterday, Honorable Bandi was talking about telecommunication and Safaricom. And I asked him, first, have you returned back your Safaricom number before you talk about it? So I think now we have a country where at the political level, we have agreed for the sake of our country. Now we want the men and women we give jobs also to protect the lives of security. They must protect the women. Every day women are killed in this country. Every day in Western Province, I don't know what's happening in Western Province. There are guys with the pangas and killing watchmen. You have seen in Kericho, in a place called Litein. Kericho, there is another problem in Kericho. People are being killed. And we must also deal with. This Inspector General must deal, because he has an expertise in intelligence, he must deal with the drug dealers. He must deal with what is happening in Kisauni. You saw the young lady who was going to work. Then somebody comes and, slash her with a panga. Kisauni must be dealt with. Yes, it's shame. It's shame for even leaders to support what's happening in Kisauni. We must deal with the people who are killing people, watchmen in Vihiga, in Kakamega, in part of that. Because do we deal with external threats or we deal with local? So the Inspector General of Police must take the lead. We must have. I really want to thank the reign of Inspector General, the former Inspector General Boynet. He was a very short man. The way the governor of Loyambapu is a very interesting man. He has described short people and fat people. Munduwas, that you cannot tell the back from the stomach. You know, people who don't know Loyangapo is a professor, but he's a comedian. When he goes to a rally, he makes people laugh. Inspector General Boynet, I can tell you.
What did you say was that name? Because
Mulmulwas.
Don't pronounce things that you do not know, because you might say it wrongly and make it very difficult.
No, it's Mulmulwas. Short and fat. Mutu mfupi amenona. And round, as Honorable Wanga is putting it. Round, and you cannot tell the back and the stomach. And Mr. Speaker, I was looking at my sons and say whether there's anyone of them who can refute that description. But my point was, Honorable former Inspector General of Police really brought sanity. We need to thank Boynet. Nairobi used to be chaotic. Nairobi used to be a city of carjacking. And under the reign of Boynet, he killed the culture of carjacking, the culture of even burglary of houses. Speaker, yesterday you have seen what the president said. Because we did our biometric data on the police force, there are over 5,000 of them who are ghost workers. And we want to ask the president even to do the same to the military. And those guys must be arrested, the 5,000 who were earning. Some of them were stationed maybe in Garissa, where is my constituency. They should be surcharged. They should be arrested. You cannot be earning salary every year to the tune of 1.8 billion, and then when the biometric data is not there. So from prison, we want the president that to be done to KDF, to be done to teachers, to be done to all civil servants. And I'm sure we will recover close to 100 billion from ghost workers. And that is why there was this man who was superintendent of police, the famous Waiganjo. Waiganjo left. when Waiganjo was arrested, he left his troops. These are the 5,000. And Mr. Speaker, thirdly, the new Inspector General of Police.
And by the way, you have 2 minutes now, leader.
No, I have 10 minutes.
You have actually surpassed the 10 minutes.
Speaker, you're harassing me.
No, I am telling you. Proceed.
Speaker, you're harassing me. I want to go.
Leader majority.
And the Speaker, you know, I really played a role in you becoming a Deputy Speaker.
That is not very important
I campaigned for you within the Jubilee Party. So, Mr. Speaker, and you are my best friend.
You are actually going to have 15, you have spoken, this is going to be 15 minutes now.
Mr. Speaker, I am about to conclude that the Inspector General has a daunting duty, and which is that Kenyans are looking at him with expectations for an effective police service. And Mr. Speaker, I remember in the security laws, you know, the framers of the Constitution decided to give, you know, the National Police Service powers which belong to the president. And I want to go on history as the first majority leader who supported and making sure that the president has the powers to sack, to redeploy, to transfer the 2 DIGs and the DCI. You cannot be the commander-in-chief of the defense forces and security forces and then a commission sitting somewhere composed of some civilians are the ones who do recruitment. No. So when I did that amendment with the Honorable Chepkonga, many people thought I was a crazy man.
What is it, Honorable Kaluma?
I thought, Kaluma, we have agreed on many other issues.
Mr. Speaker, with greatest respect to the majority leader, the President of the Republic of Kenya is the Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces, not of the police. The police is under the National Police Service Commission, and it is a service, it is no longer a force. I don't think that should come from the majority leader, and we leave it on record. I think it should be corrected and expunged.
Okay. Fair comment.
Mr. Speaker, it's not a fair comment. You know, Honorable Kaluma has lived in the opposition. So he doesn't know the running of government. The president also, apart from being the commander-in-chief of the defense forces, is the chair of the National Security Advisory Council, the highest body where even the Inspector General sits.
That's also a fair comment.
So for those who are in the opposition, we should give them tutorials on how government works. But now that they're in government, they are confused because they don't want to learn. So, Mr. Speaker, I hope the new Inspector General, once in office, shall look into the welfare in terms of promotions and provisions of the decent and adequate housing for the few who could like to of the police force. He must deal with those who want to destroy the public confidence on the police side. We expect him, once up and running, to exercise disciplinary action and control so that we can eliminate corruption, vice among the police. If they do these two things, Mr. Speaker, Wanjiko will be a happy person. The country will be at a better place. I thank him, and I hope, as the third Inspector General of Police, under the new constitution, he will follow on the footsteps of Inspector General Boynet, and I am ready to offer free tutorials to Honorable Kaluma. I beg to support.
Very well. I will give Honorable Junet, but see, you are not the leader of minority, so you will have your 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Every other member, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute to this motion. Mr. Speaker, from the onset, I would like to support this motion. That, Mr. Speaker, it's not in doubt that the nominee is qualified for the job that he's been nominated for. Mr. Speaker, his records speak for itself. He holds master's degrees from Australia and all kinds of things. Mr. Speaker, he has even 27 years experience in matters of security. So, Mr. Speaker, we do not need to dwell on that aspect unless we are reading a eulogy. Because that, when you are born and what you've started, we'll discuss it in your burial day in funerals. But now, we need to discuss the job of the man, where he's going. Mr. Speaker, there is a reason why Kenyans changed in the new constitution the command of the police from the police commissioner to an inspector general of police. It was just accidental. They wanted to empower and make that office stronger and have proper constitutional jurisdiction and originality from the Constitution so that he can perform his functions without fear or favor, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, I remember, I think it's a process of learning. We had the first Inspector General who had issues here and there, who even had PhD but went under Seke. Under Seke completely, Mr. Speaker, that he could not perform and he had to leave office and a new one came in the middle of the term. But, Mr. Speaker, there are serious issues that are facing this country.
I must follow you, Honorable Junet. So
yes,
when
Mr.
you
Speaker.
make, some terms that are not English,
under Sieke.
That I don't understand.
No, Mr. Speaker, that is called English from Elgeyo Marakwet. It's under Sieke. It's from Elgeyo Marakwet, Mr. Speaker. And it has been accepted in the country that it's under Sieke. So, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Kisang, you know, Honorable Kisang, what is it?
Honorable Speaker, is Honorable Junet in order to say Sheke is English from Elgeyo Marakwet County. Most of us, we have gone to school, we understand English very well. I think the member is out of order.
I do understand that. You know, Honorable Kisang is a St. Patrick's Iten alumni.
Yes.
He knows it is siege.
Yes.
Siege. Yes. I do not think
Mr. Speaker,
even the minority.
Mr. Speaker, you see, the English came through the ship, so every African society pronounced it in their own way and form. So Sieke is under siege, is Sieke. So, Mr. Speaker, let us not dwell on that one. But, Mr. Speaker, the issues that are facing the new Inspector General, Mr. Speaker, are enormous. Mr. Speaker, this is one man who has to account for the safety and security of every Kenyan, the 45 millions of Kenyans. He has the responsibility to make sure that they are safe and secure every day of the month, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when we changed from the former police commissioner title to the Inspector General, we expected many changes. We expected reforms in the police service, Mr. Speaker. A police that is responsive to the needs of the people, Mr. Speaker. A police service that is part of the society, that Kenyans feel very safe and secure when they are with policemen and policewomen, Mr. Speaker. The government even went further and now talk over one region of the country, Mr. Speaker. I thought it's becoming like a paramount chief, where one leaves, another one comes in from the same region, Mr. Speaker. In terms of regional balance, this one was gotten properly, Mr. Speaker. And as a leader of the opposition, I congratulate the president for appointing someone from a different place. Otherwise, we will have now said the Inspector General must come from the mountains of Elgeyo Marakwet only, because they know how to run, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, on this one, we are very happy. We are very, very supportive, Mr. Speaker. Let's hope the man given the job will perform. Let us hope he will do his job in accordance with the law, without fear or favor, without tear gassing us when we are demonstrating, Mr. Speaker, because we don't know when we are going to demonstrate. We can go back to the street anytime. He should handle us with care going forward in the spirit of the handshake, Mr. Speaker. We might go back to the street.
Okay. Very well. Before I give the next speaker, the next member, let me introduce in the public gallery students from Mpeketoni Boys High School, Lamu West of Lamu County, Mbondoni Secondary School from Mwingi West, Kitui County. That constituency, of course, represented by Honorable CNN, and Bishop Lawi Imadhiu Primary School from North Imenti, represented by Honorable Rahim Dawood. And luckily, Rahim Dawood is top on the list and therefore will speak as his students are in the gallery. Proceed, Honorable Dawood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would want to welcome the school from my constituency. Mr. Speaker, I joined the chairman of the committee and the committee of national administration in endorsing Mr. Mutiambai as the next IG. Mr. Mutiambai, being born on 24th of September 1964, is just 4 days older than me, because we were born in the same time. So I think we would qualify to be age mates. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Mutiambai has very good credentials. He's been all over the country, all over the world, studying in the US, in Australia, in the UK, and I think coming from the counterterrorism unit of the NIS, I think this is what Kenya needs at the moment. Somebody who has fought terrorism, who has done the background checks and everything, so that at least we do not have a Dusit 2 or we do not have another terrorism attack in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, I'm glad that when he was answering the committee, his response to the DCI and ESCC, because he mentioned, and he said it categorically, that the DCI is under a different section of the law, and DCI is allowed by law to investigate corruption and other issues, whereas even ESCC is supposed to do the same, but on different tracks. So when some of our colleagues would want to bring laws to change that the DCI should not be investigating corruption, I think we are going in the wrong direction, because the Constitution is very, very clear regarding that. And Mr. Kinoti, who is the DCI director, who apparently comes from Meru, is doing a very great job. But we want the DCI together with the DPP not now to wagger around and say we have got this much corruption being done. We need them to be taken to court so that we can see big heads rolling, so that we know we are serious in this fight against corruption. Mr. Speaker, regarding gender-based violence, Mr. Speaker, the majority leader has talked about it as well, and Mr. Mutiambai has said he will follow up. Mr. Speaker, we need each and every station in the country to have a dedicated gender-based violence desk, where if a lady or a child who has been defiled or has violence meted on them, to be taken on the side and not be subjected to ridicule in front of people. So they need to have a separate desk, a separate room, if it is possible, to report, so that they can go and report their issues and not do it in the public and then be ridiculed. Mr. Speaker, I agree with the nominee for IG, that we need to look at the police officers who lose their lives in the line of duty. Because, Mr. Speaker, there was a time that I had to bring a question to Parliament, in the last Parliament, where one of the gentlemen in my constituency, he lost his son, and it took more than 8 years for him to follow up so that he could be his family could be compensated. Mr. Speaker, when we do not follow up on compensation of people who have been felled in the line of duty, it is not good. Mr. Speaker, I would want the next IG to even look at roadblocks. Mr. Speaker, you will go along the road from Meru to Nairobi or on the way to Nanyuki. You will see so many roadblocks. Mr. Speaker, the IG has to control those roadblocks. Every 300 meters or every 1 or 2 kilometers, we cannot have a roadblock. What do they do? And we are worried if this is the trend which is going to be there, then we may not be doing right service to the people. Yes, you have a roadblock. Let it be done by one arm of the government. But apparently, you will have a roadblock with a traffic officer, and you go just 2-3 kilometers away, you will have normal.
Kamene.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this time. I would like to start by first thanking the former IG, Mr. Boynet, for the good work that he did. Then I would like to uphold the nominee of Hilary Nzioki Mtiambai, and would like to request him more so on the issue of corruption in the police force. If we are counting on him to see heads rolling and changes, more so in the corruption in the police force. There is also the issue of investigation. There are very many reported cases in the police force, and most of the young girls who are raped, and investigations are always done shadily. People bribing, and cases just going underground, and no enough investigations done. So we are expecting and we are looking on him as women to see how we will stand and make the service a very effective police service. And I am sure this is the best, one of the best rewards the president has done to this community. He comes from Wala, that is where we come from, and we want him to do us proud. It is not an easy job. There's a lot of commitment that he has to make sure that he has delivered well. Thank you, and I support.
Honorable Maure.
Lakini unajua seniority is not, you cannot
Maure,
fake
proceed.
it. You cannot fake it. Mr. Speaker, I wish to also put my word about the support for Hilary Mutyambai as the next Inspector General. And Mr. Speaker stated that he is coming at a very delicate time when we are transitioning the police force into a police service for the third time, having Kimayo and then Boynet. When we are on the third order of the office during the transition time, Mr. Speaker, we need somebody who is going to be very forceful in enforcing the new reforms. And the reforms, Mr. Speaker, we need to borrow a cue from the professor, the French professor who was giving evidence during the ICC cases, and put the history of our police. He described it in a sentence where he said the Kenya police force has been the one for maintaining law and order since the colonial times, and we need to struggle and strive to make it one of the rule of law, the enforcement for the rule of law. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, we need an issue to put the police in charge of enforcing the rule of law. And for you to enforce the rule of law, you must be beyond reproach. Mr. Speaker, the most embarrassing thing in our society, the moral corruption of our society, is epitomed by the presence of a uniformed police officer extorting 50 shillings, 100 shillings, 200 shillings in traffic. Mr. Speaker, a Kenyan should feel safe when you are walking or stranded. When you see a police officer, you don't see an extortionist or a potential rapist. So for that reason, Mr. Speaker, we need discipline. I know it has been very slippery over the years because of this habit of picking somebody who is one of them. And when we brought in General Ali from the army, Ali as the commissioner of police, people thought he is going to instill some discipline. But it was very difficult because the Kenya police force has lived like a mafia franchise where they observe the code of silence. They protect each other in crime. I have had a police officer in my place who used to collect money in the name of cash bill for the last 4 years. And the day the guy was transferred, he disappeared with almost 9 million from the locals. Cash bills which have never been refunded to the owners even after they have been to court and back. So, Mr. Speaker, we don't want criminals in a uniform. So, Mutiambai, as you come in, you need to know you are entering into a slaughterhouse. Please, don't be slaughtered. We want you to slaughter the rogues, the criminals, the thieves in uniform, in the name of police officers. So we are not asking him to go into business as usual or to maintain the way things are. We are calling upon him to go and declare a massacre in that room he is going into. The only way to do that, Mr. Speaker, we need to remind him he is coming as the Inspector General. Along the chain of the reforms of the Solicitor General's office, the Attorney General's office, the DPP, and the DCI. So he's coming in as a team of reforms. As we move forward to efficiency and delivery, he should know he has our support. We want to support the police, we want to support the DCI, we want to support the EACC, and Mr. Speaker, we need to clean up this country, and we start now. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Member for Kangema.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was a bit worried because I dispatched your message as agreed, but I rise to support this appointment. And
what is it?
Don't worry, it's
that's a member for
yes,
Kangema.
I rise to support.
Honorable Muturi Kigano.
Thank you, sir.
A senior lawyer.
I rise to support this appointment, and with the belief that the message we always get, that the thugs ran away, my boys exchanged fire, 6 were killed, will disappear. Yes. Because, and again, sir, the recent disappearances of our youth, unexplained disappearances of our youth, Some are found in bodies, are found in game parks. These things will be things of the past. Again, Mr. Speaker, the impunities on corruption, weed bridges, drunkenness, misuse of firearms, this again will be, perhaps, we should see these as things of the past. We also expect the new Inspector General to support DCIO Kinoti, to support Hanji in the fight against corruption, and give a numbering environment. Mr. Speaker, there is some little sabotage, but this will not stop. I hope also that the new Inspector General will cultivate public relations exercise with members of the public, because today the police service is viewed as enemy by members of the public because of the harassment, high-handedness, and oppression by the force on members of the public. Thank you very much.
Shall we now have Honorable Muri Fabian, member for Kangudo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving this opportunity to join my colleagues in deliberating on this motion. Honorable Speaker, I stand and support this motion, and also I appreciate President for appointing the nominee for Inspector General of Police. Also, Mr. Speaker, I like to appreciate the work of the two committees, the Administration and National Security Committee on Parliament, the Standing Committee of National Defense and Legislation of Senate for approving Mr. Ilali Zioki Mutiambai. Mr. Ilali Zioki Mutiambai has handed through career advancement. Is an appointee who is criteria men did not know. He stands with master's degree on the job. He stands with the experience of 27 years. Also, not only that, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Ilali Mutiambao, he comes from the region where we get the best technical officers of this country. Honorable Speaker, it is true that many proper trained technical officers, they perform a lot and they speak small. And that's why you see many people do not know who is Ilali Mutiambao. So his work was too much than even speaking. Mr. Speaker, also, I like also to stand here and appreciate the work done by police officers. The police officers in this country, they go a lot. They face a lot of time in terms of preserving the law and order in this country. But it is true, there are also police officers who are not doing the duty as required as per the law. Sometimes we wonder that whether the police, they have their own law or whether they are working within the laws like other civilians. It is now the duty of the nominee to make sure that all the policy, all the bills, and the law is used by the police officer in this country is per the Constitution 2010. There are some policies and the bills still used up to date by the police department which are not in conjunction with the Constitution 2010. This one is bringing another lifestyle which is not giving a good time in terms of discipline in police department. Honorable Speaker, it is true. It is true that our civilians, they need the proper law to perform their daily duties. But without a proper definition of duty within the police services, we are not able to understand whether. So, Honorable Speaker, I stand and support and appreciate all the work done to come with this nominee, and we expect the best for the Kenyan citizen in terms of bringing law and order from police department. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Next on top is Honorable Pukose Robert, member for Endebess.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I stand to support the appointment of Hilary Nsioki Mutiambai as the Inspector General of Police. And allow me, Mr. Speaker, to thank the former Inspector General, Mr. Poinet, for a good work done. Mr. Poinet, when he came in, at that time, there was a loss of faith in the police service, and he's managed to restore that confidence. And Mr. Poinet is one officer who you would call, you would pick. We know that we've had issues with the police since our independence, where we inherited rotten police. And Mr. Speaker, the NIMS program that was rolled by His Excellency President Uhuru and supported by the leaders of opposition who have now joined the government has unearthed a lot of issues, especially in the police force. And when the president talks of government losing 1.8 billion shillings per year, I think it's a very serious scandal that will need proper investigation and establish who are these coast officers that have been receiving this money and who is behind this scam that has been going on for some time, and for how long has this been going on, and in which other departments this is affecting. Mr. Speaker, we would like, we've seen the police, the inspector, the incoming Inspector General having very good academic credentials. But these academic credentials will only translate into action when he takes his job seriously, is able to address and bring reforms within the police force. Because when you move in anywhere, you are driving maybe in the highway and you see police officers taking bribes. And now they have even devised a more funny way of using the stick which they carry, that I am told that it has some magnet at the end, that money is dropped in the ground, and he uses that stick to collect money. You know, there is always new things that are happening within the police force, but it's rotten. Mr. Speaker, in other stations, police have even become the law enforcers. They are the ones who are also the judges, and they make determination of cases within the police station. Where people are arrested, the determination is made, and what fine you are even supposed to be paid. You know, it takes me back to my constituency of Endebess, where I'm told that in some of the stations, Kimondo, where a corporal arrests people and is able to determine how much fine you are supposed to be paid and whether he will lock you in or release you. And this translates also even to the police station, where you have an OCS who was in another station. Initially, whenever you are arrested, somebody you knew, when you appear before this OCS, you are going to pay 5,000. Now that he's moved to another station, then people even refer to him as 10 or 10, meaning another 5,000 again for you to pay. So these are serious issues within the police force that needs a head who is serious. And I know, being from the NIS, he's aware of all this information that has been happening and the road that has been within the police force. So with all that kind of information that is, and the access of information that he's able to access, we hope that he will also be able to address these issues. Mr. Speaker, we've seen the reforms with
Yes, your space is gone. Clerk, please make sure that the members are warned accordingly. Members, before I give to the next person, allow me to recognize at the public gallery St. Peter's Minor Seminary, Mukumu, from Shinyaru constituency, Kakamega County. They are welcome. To my left, top on the list is Honorable Maanzo Kitonga, member for Makueni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me a chance to contribute on this very, very important motion and appointment of the Inspector General of Police. Mr. Speaker, we've had the good qualifications and experience of the said officer, and that also I want to appreciate and the good work done by the former Inspector General, Mr. Boynet, who served Kenyans very well in a very distinguishable manner, and also you could feel the improvement of security in the country. Mr. Speaker, the background of Mr. Mutiambai is that he is dealt with the terrorism in the past in the country, and this is a matter which is giving the world a very, very difficult moment. Terrorism keeps on translating itself into, more complex, getting more complex every day. And we need a complex officer like Mr. Mutiambai to be able to deal with the terrorism menace. Recently, when Dusit was hit, we really want to appreciate the work the police did. And the current DCI, Mr. Kinoti, was among the first officers to respond in a very, very fast manner, and that saved very, very many lives. And we really want to look into a future whereby there will be no more terrorism in this country. You can see, Mr. Speaker, churches are being guarded here in Nairobi on Sundays. But what about churches in other places? What about the big churches, the cathedrals in Makueni and in Machakos and other parts of the country where they are not guarded at the weekends? And this is because of the fear of terrorism. So we want a free country, free from terrorism, and also the use of technology to counter terrorism, as we have seen currently in Somalia, where drones are able to destroy, training camps of terrorists. And I believe Mr. Mutiambai is up to the task and is going to do a good job. He will also carry on with the good work Mr. Boynet was doing. There are a number of challenges with the police force. One of it is housing. Police officers are now not housed in a very good manner. And since we have now passed regulations that we are going to allow a fund to do housing all over the country in the counties, I really want to propose that we have a lot of free land within police stations in many parts of the country, and a good housing, we can first invest in that so that our police officers are well housed. There have been proposals that they could be paid some money and they can leave a place of their choice, but it's also good to house them properly. There is also the security of police officers themselves. First, before they defend us, they must also defend themselves. And in a lot of situations, police officers have found themselves on the firing line. And arms are not just carried for the sake of it. So at times, if a police officer does not maim or disable or kill a criminal, he may lose his own life himself. And what has happened from the data we have, there are very, very many police officers who have lost their life on line of duty, and compensation has been very difficult to be achieved by their families, and their families have ended up suffering. And this is one of the things Mr. Mutiambai should look into. I'm sure they have a special fund for this, or whatever funds are available for these families should be expedited and given to those families because they died for Kenyans. They died on line of duty. You saw the young man in Dusit from Taita Taveta County who lost his life. And in fact, from his own action, though he's lost his life, he saved about 200 other people who were about to be attacked. And you can imagine that sacrifice police officers make. So I really want to support this his appointment and ask members to be here in numbers to vote for him and look forward to his service. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I can tell Honorable Mohammed is raising his hand. You only catch the speaker's eye through the screen here. And I have to keep, but I can tell quite a number of members who get an opportunity. Before Honorable Paurata speaks, allow me to recognize Nkando Boys High School, Imenti Central Constituency from Meru County.
Thank you, Speaker.
Speaker, I also rise to support the nomination of the incoming, because hopefully this House is going to agree with the report. Speaker, I get a difficult time pronouncing his second name, so I want to join and to congratulate the committee that did the vetting. And Speaker, I also want to recognize and appreciate the good work that the outgoing Inspector General of Police, IG Boynet, did. Indeed, some members mentioned, and also want to add my voice, that Boynet was one of the most accessible senior civil servants. This is a man who will call you if he sees your missed call. This is a fellow who was hands-on on anything that you bring before his attention. So Boynet has already set the standard so high. I hope the fellow who is coming in will follow suit. And Speaker, having said that, we know there are a few challenges and some of the issues that we really are holding our breath and expecting that the incoming Inspector General of Police will address. One is the cattle rustling. As we know, cattle rustling, many of us would want to believe and lie to Kenyans that it is a traditional thing, that it is cultural, but there is nothing cultural about cattle rustling. This is a trade that is controlled by barons, that is controlled by some cartel, and I hope, and the proceeds, you know, from cattle rustling has found its way into some very big offices, even in the political arena. You know, we've had even cattle rustlers campaigning with the proceeds and even getting their way into the county assemblies and hopefully, and sadly, even to the National Assembly. So, Speaker, I want to say that is one area, using his own intelligence, the Inspector General must put his feet down and crack down the whip on the cartels of cattle rustling. Speaker, something else. The disappearance of human beings is indeed very painful and something that has happened in many of our constituencies. And the question that begs 1,000 answers is, if somebody can capture these people, whatever crime they committed, bring them to court and let the whole world know what they did. But killing young men and women in the name of fighting crime is very, very sad. Speaker, as I wind up, I want to note that, indeed, Kenya is a country of majority and minorities. We have seen appointments done in the government. The Constitution of Chapter 57 speaks of affirmative action to the minorities and marginalized. If you go to Article 260, it tells you who the minorities and the marginalized are. But sadly, Mr. Speaker, I talk like this because the first time I came to this parliament, I was nominated as a minority and marginalized person. But up to date, the very good government of Kenya has forgotten and has completely refused to honor the Constitution of Kenya by having the minorities and marginalized groups given appointments to big offices in this land. You know, thanks to the famous handshake, you are seeing now guys from the other places who are still majorities anyway, getting access, appointments to government positions, but the minorities, the Ndorobos of this country, the gems, you know, the people who are forgotten, they have PhDs, but nobody is giving a damn about them because your appointment must translate into votes, very sadly. As I wind up, Mr. Speaker, I want to say this. There is a place called Soitoudo in my constituency. Any police officer.
What is out of order, Honorable Kamket?
Mr. Speaker, I have listened to my neighbor here for 20 years of this parliament.
Order, Honorable Kamket. Where is the issue of husband coming in here? Indeed, it is you. It is you who is out of order. Honorable Sarah, please proceed.
Speaker, I won't bother with the honorable member because he could be one of the persons who have found his way here through the proceeds of cattle rustling. And Speaker, as I wind up, I was saying, in Soitoudo, any police officer who is of the rank of inspector and above have trained in a place called Soitoudo, where the good people of Mgogodo have donated their land freely without leasing or renting for the police. I hope the incoming Inspector General will consider those people as a special people, even during recruitment of police. And Mr. Speaker, I want to say I support their
Very well. Honorable Bui Robert. Honorable, I can see Honorable Bui Robert, but I'm calling him. He is engrossed in the earlier speaker's sentiments.
Thank you.
You have the floor, Honorable Bui.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as we discuss this nominee for the Inspector General position in Kenya, it's important that we realize the importance of police. Consider what is going through the hearts and the minds of the people in South Africa, where continuously, for the last few days, people are being slaughtered like chicken in the streets. So, Mr. Speaker, the police service and the police actually is a very, very important service and requires to have sobriety at the leadership. And that is why I support the nomination of Hilary Nzioki Mutiambai as a new Inspector General. But, Mr. Speaker, I'm not supporting him just because he comes from my community. I wish to say that from the report given by this committee, we realize that he has the necessary academic credentials. Mr. Speaker, we've noticed that he also has worked as a deputy director in a counter-terrorism organization within the country. And Mr. Speaker, we know that the Al-Shabaab and other terror groups are constantly attempting to have attacks on this country. And many times we get to know that these attacks are foiled even before they happen. So that means that they are doing an excellent job, and he's been there as a deputy director. Mr. Speaker, he also has 27 years of experience in service. And then also the committee tells us that he satisfies Chapter 6 of the Constitution on the issue of leadership and integrity. Mr. Speaker, this is important because a lot of times we've realized that whenever there's discussion on state organs, when it comes to discussions of corruption, the Kenya police is always at the top. That is one position they've held for the longest time. And so when we have someone who satisfies the credentials of Chapter 6 of leadership and integrity, it tells me that maybe he can transfer that to the force, and that would help us. Mr. Speaker, the Constitution of Kenya also says that in appointing people to offices, we have to also consider the face of Kenya. And I want to say that, in my opinion, by now picking this nominee as the one to run our police service, we obviously have got it right because previously his last two predecessors came from the same village, and that sent a wrong signal to the police service and also to Kenyans at large. So I'm happy that this is now coming from a person who is just going to give the face of the nation to the leadership of the country. Mr. Speaker, as he takes up office, I want to tell him that there are serious challenges that the police service has. One of which I have mentioned is the issue of corruption, which he has to deal with because the police, apparently it's like they can almost offer no services without some kind of kickbacks. So, Mr. Speaker, it's important that this nominee, when he takes up office, he cleans up because clearly this is one of the things that we are constantly talking about. You open your newspaper, you switch on your radio, your TV, it's about corruption. And the people that we expect to investigate and maybe even assist in the prosecution are the same people that he is going to be oversighting. So, Mr. Speaker, it's important that he deals with issues of corruption in the police service. The other issue, Mr. Speaker, is the issue of security. As a country, we need our security. I had, a few years ago, buried 5 guards from one market. Recently, I was with the police in my constituency in one of the markets where people have been attacked and injured by robbers. And this is because we don't seem to have enough police patrols that are doing their rounds within our constituencies. Yet, Mr. Speaker, whenever there is a political rally all the policemen from the whole constituency, the whole county will turn up there. So, Mr. Speaker, it's important that they understand their job, which is to ensure that they provide security for our people. So I'm asking him, as he takes up office, Kadhiani is in the neighborhood, let him remember to also assist us in bringing in more policemen to assist us. Finally, Mr. Speaker, the new Inspector General has to be careful of politicians. Politicians will politicize everything, including the work of his office. We've had politicians here. There is a new bill. I don't know whether it's called the Ruto bill or something, the one that wants to clip the powers of the DCI. And I'm saying that because, of course, there's someone who sponsors every bill. It's unfortunate, Mr. Speaker, that we want to trim the powers, investigative powers, of the organs that are meant to deal with the issues of corruption. Mr. Speaker, we will support the DCI, we will support the Inspector General, we will support our organs so that corruption can be brought to its knees in this republic. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next is Honorable Kanini Kega.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this very, very important motion. And from the onset, I want to say that I support this report, and I want to thank the Committee on Administration led by my good friend, Honorable Koinange, and of course, they did together with the Senate. And that is one of the other questions that next time we'll be asking, why we did a joint committee between the National Assembly and the Senate. But maybe it's because of the law. Mr. Speaker, we gave them the opportunity to interrogate this candidate, and they did it on our behalf, and they gave him a clean bill of health. However, Mr. Speaker, it's good also to make a few comments in regard to this issue. Mr. Speaker, the incoming Inspector General, Hilary Nzioki Mutiambai, has a full tray. Full tray. A lot has been done, a lot has been said, but there's a lot that needs to be done. Mr. Speaker, the outgoing Inspector General, my good friend Boynet, did a lot in terms of the hardware and also some parts of the software. We have had the police uniform, of course, was changed. That is part of the hardware. We have bought so many guns. In fact, these days, you don't see the ordinary G3s. Now they have AK and more other sophisticated guns. But we need to ask ourselves, are we just investing in the hardware and forgetting about the software? Mr. Speaker, we have gone to other countries, and especially the developed countries. It's very rare to find a police officer on the streets, and especially donning a gun. It's very difficult. We have also gone to other friends, African countries, our neighbors, whereby you find literally everybody is donning a gun. And we want to copy the developed countries, whereby they know on the software as opposed to the hardware. We want a situation whereby, Mr. Speaker, you walk in the streets, you know very, very clearly that you are safe, but you can't see a police officer because there is a big brother watching from wherever they will be watching. Mr. Speaker, IG Boynet focused mostly on the hardware, merging the two police forces, which was a very, very good thing. But we also forgot, Mr. Speaker, that the AP or the administration police who are paramilitary trained are also different from the Kenya police who are trained differently. I hope that the new IG will focus on working on the few hitches that are there that are not pronounced to make sure that the two arms work in harmony. Mr. Speaker, if you are walking at night and you come across a policeman, what comes to your mind? Any Kenyan who is walking out there in the village, when they encounter a policeman, what comes to their mind? We want to change that narrative because we have had in situations whereby you are walking at night, you encounter a policeman, instead of talking to that policeman, you run away. We want to change that narrative, that perception that a policeman is a good person. But as we change ourselves, the policemen also need to also do their part, make sure that they also make friends with the community. Mr. Speaker, we want to reduce the kind of interaction also that is between the police officers when they are enforcing the law with the public, Mr. Speaker. Look at, for example, the case of traffic officers. They are on the road. with those cameras that they say that they have measured the speed of your vehicle, and they are there telling you that you are traveling at 101 kilometers per hour, and you need to be charged. Mr. Speaker, we need to change that so that we install speed cameras, which are not manned by individuals, that are automatic, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to support and say that Nzioki Mutiambai has all what it takes, but we want to tell him that he has a full entry, he has a lot of work, but we are there. We are in Parliament. We are going to appropriate the necessary money that are required, but they also need to do a lot of work. With those very many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I also want to wish him all the best. Mr. Speaker, this Parliament has this opportunity, the very rare opportunity, because we are not going to interrogate any other Inspector General this session. The other one will be done by the other Parliament. So I want to wish him all the best, and we will be there as members of Parliament to support him. Mr. Speaker, thank you so much.
Next is, shall we have now Honorable Nyasuna?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this motion for the nomination of Hilary Nzioki Mutiambai as the IG of Police. Mr. Speaker, on 15th of January this year, it was a very dark day for this country when terrorists attacked the Dusit 2 hotel. Mr. Speaker, that day is the day Kenyans were awash on social media appreciating the work that our police officers do, because lives of very, very many Kenyans were in the hands of these individuals who protect us on a day-to-day basis, but whom very many times we take for granted. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to start by saying that police officers, the day they get out of the scene is the day we will see that they do a very, very good job. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to say that from the report that we have read, Mr. Hilary, and the report that we've read from the committee and the comments that we've had from the chair of the committee and the seconder of this motion, Mr. Hilary does fit the bill for IG. And we want to thank IG Boynet for the work that he did. You know, IG Boynet actually is a true exemplification of don't judge a book by its cover, because he had a very small frame. In fact, sometimes when he wore the police kofia, you'd think that the police kofia was actually wearing him, because it would go all the way, almost covering his entire head. But Mr. Speaker, he turned out to do a very, very good job in terms of advancing reforms within the police, and has been said, very accessible. You could reach him, you could discuss with him whatever issues you're facing within your constituency and get them resolved. So as Mr. Mutiambai comes into this position, I think he has a challenge to surpass the point to which Mr. IG Boynet had gotten to. But Mr. Speaker, I'd like to say that we want the police, and when we were changing the constitution, we said we change it from police force to police service. So we want the police not to terrorize citizens, but to support them, you know, to be people you can run to for help. Mr. Speaker, for example, you know, there's this whole issue of roadblocks, of pro boxes, of sientas, of our young people, motorbikes, our young people trying to make a living. But they cannot make a living, because every day you move, there is between, for example, Kindube in Homa Bay County, Kindube, Kosele, and Oyugis, there are so many roadblocks, you wonder what they are trying, and what they're doing is just stopping the motorbikes, chasing the pro boxes, chasing the sientas into all manner of corners. Mr. Speaker, this issue of pro boxes and sientas, we need to agree that our children bought these pro boxes. They bought the sientas. They want to do business with them. It is not them who brought them into this country. Let them be allowed to do business, but to follow the law, within the law. If you need to have license, if you need to have insurance, if you need to carry only a certain number of people, let it be outlined, but let it not be a crime to be operating some of these services. Mr. Speaker, I want to speak on the issue of gender-based violence. About 2 months ago, a girl of 13 years in Homa Bay was attacked as she was going to the bathroom. She was raped by several men. A bottle was put in her private part. Her eyes were gouged out, Mr. Speaker. And we had to rush her to Nairobi Women's Hospital for treatment. Of course, that girl's life has been destroyed because she was totally, hugely traumatized. And these are stories that happen all around this country every day. Just yesterday, we heard of a case in Kisumu County where a 4-year-old girl has been raped. Mr. Speaker, and I'm talking about the Homa Bay case because to date, nobody has been apprehended for that case. So I'd like to ask our incoming IG, please deal decisively with the issue of gender-based violence so that we are able to make it painful for whoever tries to violate our children, whether they are boys or the girl child. So really the issue of GBV must really be dealt with. And finally, the DCI and the DPP are doing a great job. I hope that Mr. Mutiambe will support the fight against corruption and will support these officers to achieve this fight against corruption and to protect them from the politicization of the fight. So I really hope that he joins into that. He has sterling officers in the DPP.
Very well. Honorable Iringo Kubai.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this special motion. And I stand, Mr. Speaker, to support the appointment of Hilary Nzioki Mutiambai, and join my colleagues to say that let us welcome him into the force and let him pick from where his presidential IG Boynetti left and let him perform better. Mr. Speaker, the police force in Kenya has been devoured with a lot of criticism, and they have always been criticized in the right way and without any bias, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would request Hillary, when he gets to that position, to do an overhaul of their training in Kiganjo, because it appears what the trainings these police officers get in Kiganjo, they are trained to be enemies of the society they are going to oversee, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the police force or the policemen, they come from our homes, from our villages, they are our sons, they are our daughters, and I don't see why when they're in that uniform, they behave like beasts, especially when they are handling cases, Mr. Speaker. They don't behave as if they come from this, or they are citizens of this country. I would like to see a situation where discipline is instilled, especially in the junior ranks of our police officers, and more so those who are on the policemen who are called traffic officers, Mr. Speaker. Because when you see them on those roads, and when they are saying that they are overseeing, checking of vehicles or motorists on the road, they don't go there to do that, Mr. Speaker. Theirs is just a cash business. They are kiosks. Wherever there's a roadblock, is sort of a kiosk, and they always collect money, and when the loot is enough, they carry their roadblocks and go. And you'll find even 3 or 4 roadblocks on one road one day, and the following day you don't see anybody charged for any offense, Mr. Speaker. Hillary should look into that. Mr. Speaker, we have the problem of cattle rustling, whereby we have got this pastoralist who steal other people's cows, and especially in Meru, where people from Isiolo County have made Meru their ATM, or a place where to go and get cows. Mr. Speaker, we have a problem because these people steal our cows and still graze the same cows in our chambers, and we cannot take them because they have got sophisticated guns. And the chair of this committee, which vetted this person, came all the way to my place to oversee the same. And unfortunately, to date, our 1,000 cows are in the hands of Trocanas, and they are grazing them in our land, and they killed one of the sons of the owners of those fields. I would challenge Hillary to come to Meru and see that those cows are brought back. And I also ask the chair to the committee, Mheshimiwa Koinange, you know this story, and use Mr. Mutiambai to assist you recover these cows as soon as he sits in that office, Mr. Speaker.
What is out of order, Honorable Henley.
Is it fair for the honorable member to refer to a whole community as cattle rustlers? Because he's talking like he knows that Turkanas are the ones who have stolen. Because cattle rustlers don't have tribe as well. Is it fair for him to refer to the entire Turkana community as cattle rustlers?
Mr. Speaker, I have a lot of respect for every tribe in Kenya. I have got very good friends of mine from Turkana. Even Anoko sitting with me here is a Turkana and is my good friend. But it's unfortunate, these cows are with the Turkanas. And we know that.
Honorable Iringo, I agree with member for Kipkerion. You may not want to associate an entire community with the criminal element you're talking about. There must be specific criminal elements. That may not be a good route to follow, but that's fine. Honorable, you don't need to respond to that.
Mr. Speaker, moving on, Mr. Speaker, we would also like to see that we would like to see the new IG look into the welfare of the police force. Mr. Speaker, my constituency is a new constituency, and we don't have a single house for policemen, Mr. Speaker. We don't have even office.
Very well. Shall we have Honorable Kisang Kipkemoi?
Good. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this particular motion. I arise and support my colleagues in congratulating Mr. Hilary Nzioka Mutambei for his nomination. Honorable Speaker, from his papers, we have seen that Honorable Mr. Hilary rose from the rank of a constable from 1991 until the time he left the National Police Service to join National Intelligence Service at the rank of Superintendent of Police. And from there onwards, he has risen up to the rank of Deputy Director in charge of anti-counterterrorism. And from what we know of Inspector General of Police, the outgoing Joseph Boynet, he also came from NIS. He came from National Intelligence Services, and we believe if he comes in with the same values from National Intelligence Service, we believe he's going to do a good job. And we have also realized that he has masters in national security policy from Australia. He is suited for this particular job. But we want to tell him that he has a lot of work. He has a lot of work waiting for him. I want to say in the last parliament, we tried to pass an amendment to the security laws to give the Inspector General of Police as an accounting officer. We know that office has challenges, and we would want to urge Honorable Koinange to come up with an amendment so that this particular IG who is coming in is given the opportunity to be an accounting officer, because that office has challenges seeking for resources from the PS interior. And we've already allocated resources from Parliament. So I don't see the reason why he should not be given an opportunity to be an accounting officer for the resources that we have assigned. Honorable Speaker, I want to give some tribute to the outgoing Inspector General of Police, Joseph Boynet. For the 4 years that he's been there, we have seen tremendous reforms. We have seen insecurity levels going down, and he started installation of CCTVs within Nairobi City, within Mombasa, and we want to urge the incoming Inspector General of Police to continue installing security CCTVs across all our towns so that it will be easy for them to trace and track criminals who are roaming around in our country. Honorable Speaker, I come from Marakwet West. I was born and bred along Keria Valley. For the last few days and also a few months, we've had a lot of issues. 2 of our children who are in class 3 and class 5. This week, last Sunday, were killed by cattle rustlers. Many teachers have left the region, especially those who are not coming from the locality because of insecurity. We want to ask the incoming Inspector General, please take time. We want this thing called cattle rustling to be sorted out once and for all. And I've seen in the report that he said he's going to involve communities, he'll involve churches, he'll also involve the local leaders. because we know there are some communities. We have neighbors across Tiaty constituency. They have a big challenge. They don't have any villages across there, and we would want the Inspector General of Police to set aside resources so that we may drill boreholes. I've even discussed with the MP from the area that it would be important for the community to have villages, because as currently it is, they don't live, they just live in the bush. There are no homes. But if we help them to put villages, we drill water, we have irrigation, so these people will leave this backward behavior. So, Honorable Speaker, we also want the Inspector General of Police to pay National Police Reserve their allowances. They've been working for the last 3 years, they've not had any allowance, and we want additional NBR to protect us, because it looks like the police are unable to sort out the cattle rustlers from Tiaty constituency who seem to roam around everywhere. They go to Samburu, they come to Maragwe, they go to Turkana. And I urge Honorable Kamket, basically, it will be good for you if you can help your people using CDF and equalization fund to set up villages for them, instead of allowing them to roam around. Thank you, I support.
To my left now, Honorable Adagala Kahai.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I want to thank the Joint Committee of the Senate and Parliament under the able leadership of Chairman Honorable Koinange for vetting and actually approving the appointment of Hilary Nzioki Mutiambai to the position of Inspector General of the Police Service. They've done quite a good job. I've seen the man has a lot of experience. So far, he has been in NISA and he has worked very well. He has a vast experience. His CV is rich. He has passed through several colleges as pertains to matters of security. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, I would support the committee on his work. They've done a good job. And I would love to ask the incoming Inspector General, to take over from where Inspector General Boynet left. He did quite a good job, and Kenyans are expecting a lot from him, and especially at this time when corruption is so high in this country, both including the police and the other departments in this country. So I would wish to ask him, as this House approves him to take over the position of the Inspector General of Police, to ensure the police service and especially the policemen are corrupt-free, so that as we fight this corruption menace in the country, it should start right from where he's taking over from. And we would like to see him bring sanity in Kenya, and especially like in my county, a few weeks ago, we lost several people through crime. People who are guarding shops in the area of Kilingeli were massacred. We buried so many of them. And even I myself, in my own village, we have had several cases where people have been killed. This issue of insecurity is so high, and it has to be taken with the seriousness it deserves. Therefore, if we approve this name of the Inspector General, we expect him to work like in the Netherlands. I'm even surprised 19 prisons have closed because they lack prisoners. And I would love to see Kenya, we getting to that place. Also, we would also support other bodies, like the other honorable member said. You find that there is somebody, I've seen somewhere, somebody wanting to make sure that some investigating body is done away with. That one should not happen, and I would argue, members of parliament, we support these bodies, we support the DPP, we support the DCI, we support the incoming Inspector General of Police to do their work in a very conducive manner to ensure that crime in Kenya, and as far as matter of corruption is concerned, comes to a halt in this country. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would argue the incoming Inspector General to ensure all this is done and to make sure that the country of Kenya, people are living in a safe country. Another thing I would also wish to add on this, the issue of policemen. Some honorable members have said here, we have had cases like in my county whereby you find policemen harassing women and young girls. That's another thing that we are expecting as he comes to office. He makes sure that the women of this country are never harassed by policemen. And when there are genuine complaints, when a girl goes to a police station and complains that she has been raped, this issue of being demoralized and being told you just did that willingly, it should stop. I would argue the new commissioner, the new police, the IG coming into, as he takes over office, he should look into that and make sure that he takes care of our security of our women, children, and the rest of the people of Kenya. I therefore take this opportunity to support the committee on what they have done, and also say that this name should be approved for the guy to, for the
Honorable Mwiriki Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the appointment of the IG, Hilary Nzioki. This is the time, Mr. Speaker, we are supposed to appreciate these high offices as far as security is concerned. In the Republic, Mr. Speaker, you will see if the security officers or if the police officers just relax for just a few hours, we will get many things happening the opposite side. So, Mr. Speaker, I would like to encourage the appointee, Mr. Hilary, as he assumes this position, Mr. Speaker, he will meet with many challenges, and some of which he has already aware of, since he has served in the NIS, Mr. Speaker. He understands a lot as far as corruption is concerned. Mr. Speaker, you will get to see even in this security docket or in this police unit which we are talking about today, Mr. Speaker, most of the officers in uniform, some of them, Mr. Speaker, they normally act as if they are not part of the security to secure or to protect the people, whereby you will see some of them when they are ensuring that there is no illegal, the rules are adherent to, they are disturbing and terrorizing the motor vehicles operators, Mr. Speaker. So I'll urge the Inspector General, as he assumes to this position, Mr. Speaker, to check onto those officers who are corrupt and deal with them according to the rules, Mr. Speaker. And at the same time, Mr. Speaker, I would like him to check on the extrajudicial killings, since in this country, Mr. Speaker, you will see that there is many young people who have been killed. Some you discover in the following day that there is some bodies recovered somewhere, killed. and the people who committed the killing, Mr. Speaker, are not brought in the books. So, Mr. Speaker, it is the duty of the IG to establish the concerned party of the people who are involved in the killings of the young people in this country. And at the same time, Mr. Speaker, you will check even some of the lawyers, some of the judges are killed because maybe they have differed with maybe a certain party or a certain person, and there is no serious action taken to those people. So it is the high time for the AIG to take that action. Mr. Speaker, from the report of the committee, Mr. Speaker, they have highlighted that he has he complies with the Chapter 6 of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, meaning that he will not be corrupt he will not be corrupted by those who normally like, Mr. Speaker, to do illegal things, and he will be there to stand with the people or the common people who want services from him. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, I would like to urge the IG to recover the illegal guns which are terrorizing our people, Mr. Speaker, so that we can live in peace. With that, I beg to support. Thank you.
The Honorable Danita Gatti.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to support the approval of Mr. Hilary Mutyambai as the Inspector General of Police. Honorable Speaker, I want to thank the Committee of Administration and National Security for presenting to us, Honorable Speaker, a relatively young man to this critical position. Honorable Speaker, Mr. Mutyambai takes over from Mr. Boynet, and Honorable Speaker, it's high time that we also appreciate the former IG, Mr. Boynet, who really served this country well. Honorable Speaker, I think Mr. Boynet served this country with a lot of humility and dedication to his work. Honorable Speaker, Mr. Mutyambai comes in as a master's graduate, Honorable Speaker, and I'm happy that really we are looking at education as a serious component when it comes to employment. Honorable Speaker, Mr. Mutyambai also has worked in the police service before, and therefore, Mr. Speaker, he is bringing a lot of experience in this line of duty. Honorable Speaker, Mr. Mutyambai comes in at a time in this country when, Mr. Speaker, we are talking about the increased violence against women. Mr. Speaker, if you know, in this country, there has been, all of a sudden, there has been an increase in gender-based violence in this country. Mr. Speaker, violence, and especially violence against women, Mr. Speaker, you have seen, even in the recent past, Mr. Speaker, we are seeing a number of police officers, Mr. Speaker, who are actually perpetuating violence against women. We are seeing police officers, Mr. Speaker, who are shooting women, who are shooting their girlfriends, who are shooting, you know, the other gender, Mr. Speaker. And it is a high time that, Mr. Speaker, in terms of looking at what he talked about, Mr. Speaker, I am happy that Mr. Mutyambai talks on gender-based violence. Mr. Speaker, I take this seriously. When he talks about policies and guidelines that he will put in place to ensure that, Mr. Speaker, the issue of gender-based violence, and especially violence against women in this country, Mr. Speaker, reduces in this country. Honorable Speaker, as you are aware, women will not report cases of sexual assault or cases of rape to the police, Mr. Speaker, simply because, Mr. Speaker, the police system, the way it is structured, does not really have those structures. Mr. Speaker, the police system itself does not treat women who go there to report cases of gender-based violence, cases of violence. Because, Mr. Speaker, the police will start explaining to you, telling you to explain how did the rape happen. How does a woman, Mr. Speaker, explain to a police station or a policeman how violence or how rape is happening. Mr. Speaker, these are some of the things that we really have to really ensure that women feel comfortable when they're going to the police station to report cases of rape, to report cases of violence against themselves, so that, Mr. Speaker, they get the necessary support that they deserve. Honorable Speaker, the police force, we really need to also ensure that Mr. Mutiambai changes the perception, how the community views the police. Mr. Speaker, it is not good how the community views the police. And Mr. Speaker, he is coming in at a time you very much know that the police force has been putting in structures to ensure that the police actually integrate and live within the community settings. Police force now, Mr. Speaker, not going to be living in the camps. They are going to integrate and live within the members of the community. How then are police going to integrate within and live within the community when the people themselves do not have trust in the police force? We have to change that perception and ensure that really this work happens. Mr. Speaker, I am extremely happy that Mr. Mutiambai has talked about the issue of police welfare. Mr. Speaker, we have a lot of policemen who are living in shanties. If you look at the housing situation of our police, Mr. Speaker, and that is why they're taking bribes, Mr. Speaker, we need to address the issue of housing, the issue of remuneration, the issue of compensation of police officers, Mr. Speaker, who actually suffer disability or who actually leave their families when they die in the line of duty. Honorable Speaker, on cattle rustling, Mr. Speaker, I come from the county of Migori. And Mr. Speaker, Migori and Narok are neighbors. And you know Migori has the Kuria community where I come from. Then Narok has the Maasai. Mr. Speaker, where I come from, the Maasais of Narok and Transmara and Mashango, Mr. Speaker, there is a lot of cattle rustling between the Maasais and the Kurias. And Mr. Speaker, you know there, the Maasais tend to think that all the cattle belongs to them. You know very well, Mr. Speaker. So there is tension between the borders, and I'm sure that, Mr. Speaker, with Mr. Mutiambai, he's going to address the...
Honorable Danita, the Speaker does not know anything. It is the membership who can inform the Speaker. But very well, very good contribution. The Honorable Kamket, member for Tiat.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this motion. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Hilary Mutiambai comes in. He's going to fill the very big shoes of his predecessor, Mr. Boynet. Mr. Boynet, as has been said earlier, was one of the most accessible public servants. And I just want to say that if this gentleman is approved by this assembly, he has a very big job ahead of him. Coming from Tiati constituency, I would like to take this opportunity, earliest opportunity, to invite Mr. Mutiambai on his swearing in to visit us as soon as possible. We have plenty of problems in my constituency, especially in the areas bordering Elgeyo Marakwet and Turkana. I would like to take this opportunity to ask Mr. Mutiambai, when he takes office, to come and join me in the efforts we had begun with his predecessor to try and fight the vice of cattle rustling in Tiati and in the neighboring constituencies. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Boynet and even before him, Mr. Kimayo, realized that cattle rustling was going to be eradicated using local solutions. And I'm very happy, Mr. Speaker, that with the introduction of the National Police Reserve, we were able to deal with this matter more decisively. But there is a problem. What happened among neighboring communities was influenced by politics. The people of Tiati constituency were given about 40 guns to fight cat rustlers. But our neighbors were armed to fight us. As we speak, Mr. Speaker, there are more than 700 NPRs serving in Elgeyo-Marakwet County. And instead of fighting cat rustling, they have turned into cat rustlers. The NPR officers or people who are given guns in Elgeyo-Marakwet have themselves become the cat rustlers. The Marakwet people had never crossed River Kerio since 1974. But now they cross and kill at will. So I'll be asking Mr. Mutiambai to reconsider the issue of the NPR, especially in Elgeyo-Marakwet. We need a total overhaul and revetting of the people who are issued with guns. Mr. Speaker, during the reign of Mr. Bonet, whom I've described earlier, he was a very good officer. There are some things also that happened in my constituency that I would like to be addressed moving forward. The killing of livestock by police officers. I have never understood why a trained policeman would like to train his gun on a cow and give us nonsense stories that cat rustlers were hiding inside the cows. Those are the things, as we speak, Mr. Speaker, my people are very poor. Those bordering Laikipia, those people bordering Baringo South, their livestock was shot at point blank by police officers. I have complained. I have sought compensation. We lost over almost 7,000 cows that were shot by police officers in the name of looking for cat rustlers. These are some of the injustices that I'll be expecting Mr. Mutiambai to look into as we fight the issue of insecurity amongst our people. Finally, Mr. Speaker, the issue of extrajudicial killings. As I stand here, we lost more than 15 young men that were picked by police.
The Honorable Kamket, it's only 5 minutes. I'm sure you have more interesting things to say, but there's a lot of interest in this. I will give the opportunity to the Honorable Bone Mwalika, member for Kitui Rural.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to add my voice to the appointment of Mr. Ilale Mutabai. Mr. Speaker, I want to say on the onset, I support the appointment of Mr. Ilale Mutabai because from the report which you are getting, is well educated, well experienced on matters security. And that's what we need in this country. Mr. Speaker, as we move forward, I want to inform Mr. Mutambai that there are reforms which have been taking place and proposals on various sectors of the police, which he needs really to look into. One of them being integration of police, Kenya Police and Untitled Police. Mr. Speaker, there are 26,000 Untitled Police. As these two arms of security, they are at different levels of training. So you need to look at how the 26,000 APs are going to be trained on the issues of, especially on the issues of law, so that they can be in the same level with the Kenya Police. Mr. Speaker, we all know that there have been implementation of housing program for the police. Police have been given house allowances because there's inadequate housing facilities in the police headquarters. But this implementation has been very chaotic because the allowances which they have been given are too low. Imagine somebody with a family being given 8,000 shillings to get a house in Nairobi. That amount of money cannot be able to get somebody a decent house in Nairobi. So I think you need to look and review the house allowances for the police. You also need to look and review, maybe do a proposal to put good houses for police and lend them to the police force so that they can live a decent life. And to me, if these people are not going to be housed very well, then we are not going to talk about fighting corruption in the police force. Because I cannot just imagine somebody be given 8,000 shillings to get a house with a family. We all know that the salaries for the police force are quite very low. Mr. Speaker, the chief's camps have been gazetted as police posts. And we want to see police being posted to the police camps so that they can fight insecurity in the grassroots. We want to see the posts being equipped. We want to see the police in the chief's camp be given transport so that they can do the necessary work which they have been doing. Today, we have just passed the motion of payment of allowances for elders. And I hope elders play a very key role in terms of security. And I think and I hope the new AG, coming AG, should be able to support the payment of allowances for the villagers. You also need to put measures and proper measures to fight corruption in the police force. We all know the roadblocks. The roadblocks actually centers of corruption. And we all know that if you are going from here to Kitui, when you reach the border of Machakos and Kitui, there are two forts. There are two roadblocks within a distance of 200 meters. And I don't even understand why we should have all those. We also expect him to support corruption in the general public and make sure that corruption is reduced. With those few remarks, I support. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Dahir, member for Dadaab.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute to this report. And from the outset, although with some reservation, I want to support the report as prepared by both committees, the joint committees of both houses. Mr. Speaker, really the work of the Kenyan police is a public duty, and we really are looking forward to the reforms of the Kenya police where they become very friendly to the citizenry. Now, what I want to say is that in many parts of this country, we have been facing issues of extrajudicial killings and extrajudicial disappearances. And for the incoming IG, who is now the nominee, I hope that the House will agree to pass his name. What we want is serious reform on the issue of extrajudicial killing. I want to say that, for example, where I represent, we have had disappearances of citizens for a long time. Where I represent, over a period of 3 years, we have had more than 20 people who have just disappeared into thin air. And one of the things which really surprised the leadership in Garissa County, and particularly in the Dadaab sub-county, is that even when we ask the operations of this mysterious force, and I call it mysterious because this force is not accountable to the police security arms in the region, neither to the administrators. Nobody can confirm whether this force was sent by the relevant sections. And this mysterious force has been operating in Garissa County, in Wajir County, in Mandera County, and they have brand new vehicles with the number plates which are not officially available on the NTSA site. And even if you get the number, you find that the vehicle type and the number which the vehicle you get when you search for it are totally different. Now, these vehicles are new. They have officers who have masks. They come to the sub-county headquarters or wherever it is, and they attack people at their houses at night, in the evenings, and they pick people and they're never seen again. Now, these people have been being given safe haven at the military camps. We have asked even the military officials whether they are aware of this, and we have been told they are not aware. Mr. Speaker, we really want, with the incoming IG, those kind of extrajudicial killings and disappearances should stop. We believe that if we were going to use to fight terrorism, we must use the law. We must not use illegality to respond to illegality. And our problem is that we don't find any difference between this mysterious force, which we believe is from some arm of government, and the Shabab, because they operate in similar way. They are not, they don't take people to police, they don't take them to court. Once you are picked, you disappear forever. And it has created more animosity, more bitterness among the population, to the extent that people would not want even to talk to the police on issues of terrorism. So what I want to say is that with the incoming IG, we are going to hope that these issues will be addressed seriously so that extrajudicial killings and disappearances become a thing of the past. Meanwhile, we'll still want to ask the incoming IG, once approved, to investigate on those extrajudicial disappearances in Coast Region, in Northeastern Region, and even in Nairobi. Lastly, even last week, there were 6 bodies which were discovered in Tsavo National Park, and we need the police to tell us who actually put those bodies there and what is exactly their status. With those many remarks, I say thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I support.
The Honorable Odhiambo, member for Gam.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for this opportunity. I rise to support the approval of the nominee for the appointment as the Inspector General of the National Police Service. From the onset, let me congratulate the Committee on Administration and National Security for a more comprehensive report that they have presented to us. Let me say this, that Mr. Hilary Nzioka, who is taking over from the IG Boynet, will have some great lessons to learn from Boynet. Boynet was very forthright, honest, and in more instances, when I personally called him when I had issues in the constituency, he was readily available for assistance and for his wisdom and to ensure compliance in terms of eradicating insecurity in Game constituency. I've looked at the profile of Hilary, and I can say without a doubt, without an iota of doubt, that he has the competence and the competencies that will help him settle down in his job. What I would like to see and evaluate as time goes forward is to see a correlation of his profile based on his level of academic qualification correlating to the performance in terms of enhancing security in this republic. I want to ask him that it is prudent that it takes time to take an audit of the needs of the police force in this republic. We have many competent police officers, but we also have so many police officers who have been treated so badly that they have lost hope in the force. I can't say that there are many police officers who have the highest level of academic qualification, some of which are even higher than some of our colleagues here in the House. So it's important, as he looks at the force, he must take cognizance of a scheme of service that will enhance motivation in the force so that the levels of productivity in the force can be enhanced. I also want to request him that he needs to ensure there's complete eradication of Waragi.
Onyego, you are out of order. The Honorable Onyego Osoro, you are out of order. Proceed, Honorable.
Thank you. I want to request him that he needs to help in the drive in eradicating Waragi. There are many businessmen in this country importing Waragi from Uganda, and this is killing young Kenyans, young brilliant Kenyans. In particular, I want to ask him to focus on game constituency so that Waragi is destroyed completely. And equally, ensure that you beef up. There are many areas who have many police officers and others don't have. For example, in my constituency, there are many police officers who are transferred, but they have not been replaced to date. So the few who are there are overly stretched. So he's coming when his table is full, and he has a lot to learn from the previous regime. And more importantly, he equally needs to focus on investigation. One, revamp the forensic lab so that we have officers who have competence in terms of investigating violence against women and equally theft of cattle and even house raids. So I want to wish him well, and I want him to continue to encourage police officers to go to school so that we have men and women who have good academic papers, good qualification, but to ensure that you promote them so that they know you go to school and you can earn a promotion. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir.
The Honorable Tongi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity also to support the nomination of Hilary Nzioki Mutambai as the next Inspector General of Police. Mr. Speaker, I want to take this opportunity to congratulate Honorable Poinet, who has done a wonderful job in serving Kenyans, ensuring their security. Mr. Speaker, before Poinet came in, it was chaos. We were being attacked everywhere. And now he has stabilized the country, and we are hoping the incoming Inspector General, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Tongi, just hold on 1 second. The Honorable Tuwei Kipkurui, member for Mosop, what is out of order?
Sir, having read the mood of the House and the direction in which we all have, may I, through standing order number 95, call the mover to reply.
Honorable members, the Honorable Tongi, just hold your horses. Honorable members, allow me to put the question that the mover be called to reply. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many of that opinion say nay? Nay. The nays have it. The Honorable Tongi, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for that leadership you have given, because it's unfair. It is a very critical appointment, Mr. Speaker, and using the words of a majority leader, he said that we are being accused of stamping and appointing people without following due process. And this is one such opportunity that we have to demonstrate that the person we have chosen, or the government has chosen to be our Inspector General, is qualified for the job. The incoming Inspector General, Mr. Speaker, is a very lucky man. Very lucky in the sense that he's coming into the country, he's coming into the office when we already have experiencing a lot of goodwill at the global level. Mr. Speaker, it's not long ago that Mr. Mokaya Tapichi was given the best award in the world as the best teacher in the world, which is an inspiration, Mr. Speaker, because the best contribution you can make to mankind sometimes is not even to give them money, it's to inspire other people to achieve their full potential. So Mokaya Tapichi, the best teacher in the world, has already inspired Mr. Henry Mutambai. We also have Obiri, who has won the world record twice yesterday. World record, Mr. Speaker. Another inspiration. We have Frida Mokaya, the first black woman ever to win and to get a PhD in nuclear physics. That happened yesterday. this is the best opportunity for Mr. Nsioki to get into the office because he already have examples and being read by the Kisi Nation, best chap who have done the best in the world, Mr. Speaker, that is the best mood you can ever want to get into the office with, Mr. Speaker. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, I want to take this opportunity to also encourage Mr. Nsioki when he gets into the office that there are many extrajudicial killings. We have Mr. OCS, also known as Mr. Ragira, who was killed not long ago, about 3 weeks ago, Mr. Speaker. We pardoned him on Saturday. This is a young student who was at Nairobi University, busy doing his work, protecting the less fortunate in the society, and he was killed, Mr. Speaker. To date, there are no people who have been arrested towards, in connection to his death, and we are hoping when Mr. Inspector General comes in Nsioki, we'll be able to pick up that and move on so that we can get justice done and served to the family of Mr. Ragira, who was killed, unfortunately, by the people who are not known, but the family has suspicions. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Nsioki alone will not be able to do the job unless he is going to get a way of encouraging, inspiring, and motivating the people working under him. He will not be able to work alone and succeed. Mr. Speaker, lately you will see the traffic police officers, they're not putting their false numbers here. Without the false number, Mr. Speaker, if you have issues, if you have complaint to register, Mr. Speaker, where on earth are you going to register that complaint? So we need them to display their false numbers on the uniform so that we are able to pick whenever we have an issue, issue of complaint or issue of complimentary, we are able to say that this officer number did a wonderful job or is a mess in the force or spoiling the good name of the police so that we are able to enforce the law, Mr. Speaker. Our improvement, Mr. Speaker, is key to any staff motivation. We are sure that when the incoming Inspector General will be able to pick up from where Honorable Poinet had done, so that we can inspire and motivate the police officers, Mr. Speaker. Promotions, Mr. Speaker. We have been told that to get a promotion in the police service, you need to know people. Mr. Speaker, it should never be the case. We need to promote people based on merit and what they're able to do. So this is promoting people on how you know your friend is not a good thing. Before, Mr. Speaker, we used to have Akisi as the force commander, the only one we ever had. He lost his job, and we thought he would be given a replacement from the region. We are hoping the president, in his wisdom, will get us a replacement of Mr. Suga, who was the only officer we have ever had in the Kisi Nation. We need to get a way of counseling the officers and working under the police. Mr. Speaker, they work under a very difficult environment. Sometimes they go through trauma. We need to develop a system under which they are going to be counseled so that they are able and ready to serve Kenyans. Sometimes we give them too much trouble without having to appreciate them as human beings who also have issue and personal level. We need to develop a system, and
The Honorable Aseka, member for Whistle. Honorable members, we have so far, at present, we have 26 requests. So kindly bear with me, because I wish I had 2 or 3 mics that I could give out simultaneously, but we can only speak one at a time. So those who will get an opportunity will speak. The Honorable Aseka, proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I also join my colleagues in supporting the nomination of Mr. Hillary as the IG of the National Police Service. 2, I also want to thank the committee for the work well done and presenting a candidate to this House whom I think will deliver as per the wishes of the people of Kenya. The Speaker, as you know, the role of police is to protect the lives and property of people. And Mr. Speaker, in so doing, the police have a duty, Mr. Speaker, towards this. 1, Mr. Speaker, as Mr. Hillary takes up as the IG, my plea to him, Mr. Speaker, is first of all to ensure that the police reforms that was been proposed in the new constitutions are adhered to. This reform, Mr. Speaker, will go a long way in ensuring that there is confidence and trust between the people and the police force. Mr. Speaker, also, I want to urge him, as he takes up the responsibility, to look at the welfare of police, in terms of police infrastructure to ensure there are enough vehicles assigned to each and every police stations and police posts, to ensure that, Mr. Speaker, also police are well remunerated, their allowances are given, and they are supported. And more so, Mr. Speaker, is to look at the medical cover of all police officers. And, Mr. Speaker, to ensure this, our colleague Hillary must work more than his predecessor did. Mr. Speaker, also, the IG should also work out to rein in the rogue police officers. Mr. Speaker, 2 months down the line, Wisero constituency lost 5 lives, people who were brutally murdered, and some of the investigations that are there at hand, some of them indicate that some police officers were involved into these murders. Mr. Speaker, it's not fair for a police officer who is charged to protect the lives and the property of people to be named as a person colluding into doing these heinous acts. As he takes over, I want to take this opportunity to welcome him to Wisero constituency, where members of that constituency are crying. People have been widowed, children have been left orphaned, community is crying because of the role of the police, whom, Mr. Speaker, I want to commit to this House that if at all this is not addressed, we may cry, we may say, but we'll keep on losing lives and people. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, we also need the President to consider the youth in this, I can say them, celebrated appointments. Our youth of this country also have a role to play, and they should be nurtured, they should be given an opportunity in these appointments so that they can also partake their role as the leaders of this nation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Well, the member for Mwala.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me start by declaring interest that the said Hilary Mutambai is my loyal voter. He comes from my constituency. I know him as a brilliant, smart, yet very humble man, a man of integrity. And Mutambai is a clear case, testimony that actually a person can rise up by merit. He's a person who has rose through ranks to where he currently is without godfathers. Because I know the village where he comes from, he could possibly have no godfathers. I want to congratulate him in supporting this motion. I, however, want to warn Mutambai that he is going to face a myriad of challenges, and he has to fit in the shoes or exceed the expectations of Kenyans. At least the least he can do is to do what Boynet did. One of the issues I would want to raise that seems not to have been raised is the issue of petty crimes. Recently, if my memory serves me well, I remember the DPP had raised an issue to the former, or to Boynet, about so many arrests for very petty crimes that are naturally now filling our courtrooms. He needs to strike a balance between, without compromising on security, but also strike a balance so that we do not have every other day traffic officers, because they are mostly mentioned, arresting thousands and thousands of people every day and just filling our courtrooms for some of the issues that do not necessarily warrant arrests. Again, the issue of corruption, it is only yesterday that His Excellency the President mentioned that through this initiative of Huduma Number, it has been unearthed that we are actually paying over 2,600 policemen who are actually ghost policemen, corruption is real. We have been spending 1.8 billion annually to pay people who don't exist. This does not just affect the police force. I'm imagining that if this is what we have been misdirecting in the police service, the similar number is going to other public service departments. But it's a wake-up call because, again, the police have been highly mentioned when it comes to corruption, that he has to do his work. It is also his duty also to negotiate and fight for the for well-being of the policemen, because I would want to believe that one of the reasons why the policemen would take as low as 50 shillings is because 50 shillings means something to them. And it can only mean something to them if they are poorly paid. And we also have to realize as a country, if we have to have a good force that is free of corruption, then we also must be ready to pay them well. And where Mutyambai Hilary sits, he needs also to come out and defend his force in as far as good pay is concerned. It has been said, and I will say it again, that extrajudicial killings is real. There are rogue policemen who will ambush you, who ambush and become man-eater. They go against the very role that they have been given or entrusted to, and they become the source of insecurity. I have witnessed such cases, and I would want to tell Mutyambai this is an area where every Kenyan is interested, and he needs to be ready for this. That said, I once again want to say that the appetite by the president to choose men from intelligence seems to pay, and as paid with the Boynet, I am confidently going.
The Honorable Osoro.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, my colleague here is really making me laugh. I equally, Mr. Speaker, want to support the appointment of Mr. Nzioka as the new Inspector General of Police, and commend the work the good committee has done in terms of getting a good report after voting to us about Mr. Nzioki, sorry. Mr. Speaker, I have met Mr. Nzioki when I met Mr. Nzioki first when I was in the Committee of Defense and Foreign Relations, when he was still in Nice, and the few interactions that I had with him, I want to believe that he's a man that is able and up to the task. But Mr. Speaker, there are so many underlying issues that Mr. Nzioki is going to meet in the new capacity as the IG. Mr. Speaker, to be a young person in this country is becoming an issue. And at times when I pass through this city and where my private office is located, I see young men handcuffed every Friday, Saturday in the evening about 6 p.m., you know, and the following day they are asked for 1,000 shillings or 2,000 shillings to be released. Others get some charges conferred upon them. Very simple PCRs written, you know, that you are drunk and disorderly, and forcefully placed in some vehicles and put in some cells, you know, and at times released without trial after spending their weekend in the cells. Mr. Speaker, that has been the norm in the police service for quite some time, and it's about time that we get a person who will change this narrative of police force to the police service, that a police officer believes that he's above the law, and the language of treating the suspects, you know, these things of being told, you know, utasemea mbele. Those are the things that we are still facing since independence. Young people arrested, when they get arrested, they are not given an opportunity. Article 49 is not well actualized, that you are not told or the reason for your arrest. You're only told, you will say once you get to the station. Those are the challenges that we still have in Nairobi and urban centers of harassment by the police officers. and at times the feeling that, you cannot engage a police officer when you are arrested. And something else that is very important that I wish to state about, again, within the city of Nairobi, is the police officer allowing themselves to be used by the county government officers to undermine the young men who are hustling in the city. I have seen young men riding motorbikes, in as much as there are bylaws that bar the motorbike riders from coming to the CBD. But I've seen young men being harassed by police officers who are being used by the county governments. Recently I saw a young man with a passenger in his on his motorbike. While moving, I saw one police officer pull the motorbike and had the passenger hurt. And when people came, I could see the police officer throw some tear gas canisters on the people who had converged to ask what was happening.
The Honorable Soro, do I get it that you mean that when the bylaws of the city are offended by the motorcycle riders, they should not be arrested?
Not necessarily. I am talking about the human rights. Mr. Speaker, Article 49 is clear on the rights of arrested persons. You do not affect or you do not kill one's right in the name of effecting a certain bylaw. The supreme law of the land remains the Constitution of Kenya. And police officers well know that when they are getting people arrested, they should be careful on how they handle them. And that is all I'm saying, in as much as the bylaws exist. And finally, Mr. Speaker, the issue of the police welfare. Police still remain, their welfare still remain unhandled, and it's about time we handle them. And I see my time is up. I want to support unequivocably. Thank you.
Very well. I'm sure we will receive a little guidance from your contribution from the Honorable Gitonga Murungara, who is a senior advocate.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much. Unequivocally. Mr. Speaker, sir, I have sat here the entire morning so that I would make a contribution to this very important special motion on approval of the nominee to become our new Inspector General. I think it may not be post facto to congratulate Hilary Nzioka Mutyambai, for I believe, and reading the mood of the House, is going to be approved. However, let me begin by giving my accolades to the outgoing Inspector General, Bwana Joseph Boynet, for an excellent job he has done. I think without any reservation, he has delivered what this House approved him to deliver, and wherever he goes, and whatever service he's going to give to the country, we wish him the best. As Mr. Mutyambai comes in, we do urge him to take this job with the nobility and the importance it deserves. He is now ascending to the apex of the National Police Service, and therefore, much is going to be given unto him, and much is going to be expected of him. First and foremost, he has to deal with the reforms which we have always been singing about. Our police service is still in want, and he must look into this. He must also bring the necessary changes that we have also been calling for, including the welfare of the police officers, promotions which are still haphazard, not well coordinated and regularized, a little bit of favorism and nepotism. All these vices he must deal with. He must deal with corruption in the force. There is no reason whatsoever why, when the corruption index in Kenya is done, the police force does rank number one. It should move away from this. Housing, which is in question, that police officers will now not be housed by the government, but will have to do so privately. I'm aware that with the CDF, we are not being allowed to construct police lines anymore, but this is an issue that needs to be examined. Motor vehicles, they do not have sufficient vehicles to take care of them. Uniforms, we are told they are getting a new set of uniforms. This again has to be looked into so that every one of them is well uniformed, transfers, etc. Most important, and what I wish to contribute to is insecurity, which is ravaging the country. I must single out my own constituency, Tharaka, where I still have cattle rustling and bandits terrorizing residents, especially in Tharaka North. We have called upon the government to ensure that this is curbed. We are doing the best we can to ensure that we do have police posts and lines along the area, but still, rustlers from Isiolo, and that was complained about, and also from Garissa, Balambala, find their way into Tharaka to steal livestock and terrorize the citizens. I have made an application to the outgoing Inspector General for a number of Kenya Police Reservists to be trained, equipped, and deployed in the constituency. That application is lying on the desk of the IG, and Mr. Hilary Nzioki Mutiambai will find it there. It is my plea to him that he deals with this so that next time I go to Tharaka constituency, I will be saying my problem that has been long-lasting has been resolved by the incoming Inspector General, Bwana Hilary Nzioki Mutiambai. I do support the motion, and I do urge the House to approve the appointment. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Pondo, member for Homa Bay.
Mr. Speaker, I sat in the Committee on Administration and National Security, and we did signify our approval to the appointment of this particular nominee. Mr. Speaker, allow me to therefore register my gratitude and signify my accolade to His Excellency the President for making this nomination. This confirms to us, honorable colleagues, that His Excellency the President is indeed, keen to integrate all Kenyan communities. You remember, Mr. Speaker, in the last parliament, if this appointment were coming, it would have come from sections other than Lower Eastern. And so let me assure the President of our support on matter inclusivity and the fight against corruption. We want a situation where all Kenyans are integrated in national service, and this is good. Mr. Speaker, I knew the outgoing Inspector General kept a very open policy, particularly to leaders. Even when we were in the hardcore resistance opposition last time, I visited the offices of Honorable Inspector General Boynet on a number of occasions, and I was well received. Whatever we discussed were acted upon. May I encourage Ntiambai, if approved by the House and he takes that office, to keep an open door policy, particularly for these leaders, because they interact very keenly with the constituencies down there and with the people of Kenya, and then to act on those matters the leaders take to them. Now, Speaker, if approved, the Inspector General is going to have to deal with a number of issues, and is going to need to work with Parliament very closely. As the Committee on Administration and National Security, and I believe my chair in the committee has assured, we will be very ready and willing to sit with the Inspector General as and when he desires, so that one, we can see where we can help in his work and the work of the National Police Service in the area of legislations we need and in other areas. We want a National Police Service which is playing a core function in the fight against corruption, which is the President is championing currently. And this is internally, Mr. Speaker, and externally. We want corruption within the police to be sorted out, just as we also want the Inspector General, if approved by this House, to be supportive of the work of the Directorate of Criminal Investigation, which, though semi-autonomous, is falling within the Kenya Police Service. We want a lot of support, and through the committee, let me assure that there is nothing that is going to undermine the work of the Inspector General. Laws are being talked about. Those are legislative proposals. They are normal. But I think as Administration and National Security, we will not allow those laws sitting in this House, those proposals to pass. This year, we are adding money to the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, so that the fight against corruption, to which we lose over $1 trillion, according to the reports of the Auditor General each year, is really, successfully, undertaken, and money is made available to enable His Excellency the President implement the 4 agenda. The roadblocks was addressed in the National Police Service Order, which we enacted, Mr. Speaker, before we went for elections last time. Roadblocks need to be addressed when he goes in. The role of the National Police Service Commission and the mandate of the Inspector General in commanding the police needs to be harmonized, and I believe this is the Inspector General who is going to see into that. Because currently, if you look at the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, the National Police Service Commission should be recruiting, it should be transferring, it should be promoting. But again, by legislation, we have, brought a bit of confusion in that realm. We want a situation where these matters, properly speaking, are dealt with. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, the matter of welfare in the police is a matter that I think for the Inspector General to succeed is going to have to look at very keenly. We are talking of police allowances. But, Mr. Speaker, look at the amounts being proposed by the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. Can they enable a police officer serving in Nairobi, serving in the cities, to rent a house? It's a problem. So we would want the Inspector General to engage the SRC immediately, so that if that is the approach we are going to take, really, there can be, meaningful, payment towards that regard, so that the police officers live decently. We don't want police officers committing suicide. So the psycho, support that that Ntiambai and the nominee spoke about must be taken up. Time is short, Mr. Speaker. I wish the nominee well if he succeeds to get his approval from the House and appointment later by His Excellency the President.
The member for Kipkelion West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to join my colleagues in supporting this appointment of Mr. Hilary Mutyambai as the next IG. And as has been said by members before me, the new IG has a lot in its tray. And it will serve him well, Mr. Speaker, if he continues the open door policy that was introduced effectively by his predecessor, Mr. Boynet. And having said that, Mr. Speaker, we have talked too much about cattle rustling, and the nominee has said that he has experience having served, in Uganda, and he knows a lot about the Karamojang, and he will bring that experience to deal with the menace of cattle rustling in this country. But the matter that has been overlooked, or that is really not being mentioned in this House, Mr. Speaker, is the issue of the drug barons. Mr. Speaker, we have concentrated, and as my honorable colleague, Mr. Kaluma, said, that the committee intends to add money to the Directorate of Criminal Investigation for purposes of fighting corruption. We need the same committee to add more money to the fight against drug barons. And the IG will find it well, Mr. Speaker, to unweave the rot that has destroyed the young men of this country through drugs. And these are people who have gone high into the political system, and they are running networks, they are in parties, and they are everywhere in government. And I think the new IG will do better to come and, take it as his mandate to fight these drug barons,
The honorable
Mr.
member
Speaker.
for Kipkelion West, sorry to interrupt you, but honorable members, you will recall that time for a motion such as this is 3 hours. We have now run down the clock by 2 hours, 50 minutes. So it is now incumbent upon me to call upon the mover to reply for the next 10 minutes. So the honorable member for Kipkelion, sorry, but time has caught up with you. It is time for the mover now to reply. The mover, in replying, you have opportunity to donate any time to any other member whom you may nominate to share in your time with you. So you can nominate a few members, because the interest was immense. Okay. We still have 21 members who are still interested in speaking.
Okay,
to this.
thank you,
Proceed.
Honorable Speaker. I wish to donate 2 minutes out of my 10 minutes, 1 minute to Bashir and 1 minute to Beatrice Nyaga, and then I'll proceed. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think I want to thank also the chairman for donating 1 minute. And I think I want to, from the onset, take this opportunity to support the appointment of Mr. Hilary Nzioka Mutambai as the third IG under the new constitution. Looking at his experience and the CV, I think he is well versed in matters dealing with the police. And I think it's important that as he comes in, he needs to uphold the issue of open door policy that has been said already, and that he needs to acknowledge and work with all stakeholders. The issue of extrajudicial killings, actually, that is the key thing that members have spoken about. So I want to ask Mr. Mutyambai, as you settle down, please deal with the issue of extrajudicial killings, and all members of the police force or security forces. I think there's no much answer to this issue. So I want to urge him to really have an answer and a solution.
The Honorable Ngatha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand to support the motion. And on the onset, Mr. Speaker, I would like to say that Mr. Hilary Nzioka has got a lot of issues to sort out in the force, particularly the welfare of our police officers, Mr. Speaker. It has to be looked into. We have officers who have been in one grade for more than 10 years, which is very unfair, Mr. Speaker. Look at the issues of the housing, Mr. Speaker. Remuneration has to be taken care of so that we can be able to have the best of our security in this country, Mr. Speaker. Because if we don't take care of our police officers, Mr. Speaker, then they cannot be able to perform well. We need to sort out that one, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, corruption is the elephant in the house. He has to do something. He has to support the DDP, he has to support the DCI, and he has to do it without politics in it, Mr.
Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, first of all, I really want to thank all the honorable members who have contributed, and even the honorable members who have waited, but they have not been able to get a chance to speak. And Honorable Speaker, I also want to let the honorable members that their contributions, we take it as a committee very seriously, because these are the arsenals we are going to use to be able to oversight the National Police Service. Honorable Speaker, I also want to thank committee members as well as our counterparts from the Senate for a job well done. Honorable Speaker, I also want to recognize the good work led by IG Boynet, and also I want to say that it will go a long way for the new IG to make sure that the reforms are implemented. Honorable Speaker, if approved by this House and subsequently gets appointed by His Excellency the President, the nominee will become the next Inspector General of Police and a Commissioner with the National Police Service Commission at a time that the country is undertaking major reforms in the police service. Honorable Speaker, the Constitution gives the Inspector General of Police the exclusive mandate on independent command over the National Police Service. Honorable Speaker, he's in charge of the police service and also the Administration Police Service and the Directorate of Criminal Investigation. He is responsible for rewarding and disciplining police officers, especially in the lower ranks. Honorable Speaker, it has become common to see police officers engage in crime, including armed robberies, like many members have mentioned here today. Of course, they are very good officers, and I urge them to continue to be the officers who are the ambassadors for change in the National Police Service. The cancer of taking bribes by traffic of police officers appears very deeply rooted, so much that the two immediate former IGs failed to deal with this menace. Honorable Speaker, it cannot be that even children as young as 7 years know that traffic police officers demand and receive many officers deployed as bodyguards to VIPs. Why would one VIP need more than one bodyguard, Honorable Speaker? In the rural area and peri-urban areas, many police officers are posted as guards to banks and microfinance institutions. During the day, these police officers work for the bank, which are private institutions, and in the evening, they are off duty, having been on duty the whole day guarding banks. The net effect of this, Honorable Speaker, is that we shall forever have a shortage of police officers. Why can't banks hire retired police officers or even from National Youth Service graduate? Why can't VIPs hire retired police officers, military, and prison officers as their bodyguards? Honorable Speaker, the new IG must decisively deal with the issue of private security being offered by our police officers. Very many officers want to leave the main police duties to become bodyguards to VIPs, join national intelligence, join diplomatic unit, or join the DCIA. And when they succeed in joining the DCIA, they all want to join the anti-fraud department, don't want to join fighting crimes in flying squad, rapid deployment unit, or even anti-stock theft unit. It is a high time that police officers change and make police service as a calling, and this will help the new IG. Going forward, we want to see merit-based postings, transfers, promotions, and deployments to help boost the morale of our hardworking police officers. The issue of ghost police officers is very rampant within the service. It is costing our taxpayers a lot of money. It needs to be tamed. The new IG must operationalize the police counseling centers and also improve the working condition of our police officers. We do not want to see more police officers commit suicide or kill members of their families due to excessive work-related stress. Honorable Speaker, as I conclude, the new IG would aim to help the issue of gambling menace in our country, a national disaster in the making, Honorable Speaker, that can easily destroy the future of our children. As a member of the Kenya Coast Guard Service Board, we require that the new IG helps this important security service, which at its infantry stage get on its feet. Honorable Speaker, I believe that Mr. Hilary Nzioki Mutiambai is equal to the task. He fits the bill of becoming the next Inspector General of Police. Honorable Speaker, with those many remarks, I beg to reply. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. Honorable members, I will direct that the next actions on this particular motion will be undertaken when the matter is again set down on our order paper. Honorable members, the time being 1 p.m., this House stands adjourned till today, Wednesday, 3rd April 2019 at 2:30 p.m.